Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the final round of the 2025 ASR Supercars Championship. Who would have thought that this time, 3 weeks ago, we would have been talking about a championship deciding round for the last part of the season. It looked like it was a foregone conclusion at Bathurst. All that Will Devonish had to do was turn up, and he tried to turn up, but unfortunately the power gods had something else in store for him, and now we find ourselves in a position that it is mathematically possible for Kurt Stenberg to take another title here in ASR from second place. There's quite a lot of math, quite a lot of questions, a lot of what ifs, a lot of scenarios and things that still have to slip through the fingers of different people. We're going to do our best to dissect all of that for you in the next few minutes or so and let you know how it is all possibly going to unfold tonight. With myself, Steve DeVries, and Benjamin Roach going to be frequently doing all the points checking we possibly can tonight to make sure we know what is happening. Rody, I'm still scratching my head as to the events that have unfolded 3 weeks ago, but we're in this position. We've been here before. It makes for an exciting finish to the 2025 Championship.
It definitely does. Good evening to everyone watching along at home, or good morning or good afternoon, or everyone applies to you. And yeah, a month ago I was very much expecting this to be a formality, just ticking off the box and declaring the champion officially. But we have now got to the point now where it is going to be a fight on track. The points are still very much in favour of Will Devonish, but look, anything can happen, and the last round was a perfect example of that, which Will not starting the race at all. So it remains to see how things go. We have also got a few other storylines coming in tonight. It is the last round for CRE Anson as a team. We'll get a bit more into that as the night goes on. Obviously, we've got the rest of the season to to finish off as well, and all the storylines are fine with that. And we have also got a bit of a sad moment in that it is your last broadcast for ASR, at least on a full-time basis.
Yes, that is something that I know as a few people have sort of noticed is something that's happening tonight, but we're not going to let that overshadow what the drivers are putting in out there on track at the moment. The broadcast hasn't got off to the best start as well, because I just noticed that the graphic had a slight little error in it in that little intro video there as well while we were talking. So not off to the best start, but hopefully we can pick it up from here. But what we're going to do first and foremost is we're not going to waste any time. We're basically going to get straight into it, and we're going to have a look at how this points situation is potentially going to unfold. So straight away, onto the driver's standings. Let's have a look at it. It's on your screen right here. The math is very, very simple. Both Will Devonish and Kurt Stenberg have in fact got a drop round of 0 points in the equation. In fact, Will Devonish is actually, well, technically he's got 2 because of how the situation's unfolded at Bathurst. So that puts them 138 points apart going into tonight's final round. So the simple logic is, if Kurt Stenberg wins the first race, and Will Devonish finishes obviously second or lower, it doesn't matter where Will finishes in the first race, it will go to a second race tonight. That's the very simple math. Kurt has to win to keep the championship alive going into the back half of the night. If Will finishes ahead of Kurt, so if it's a first place to Will and a second place to Kurt, that would be a 150-point margin. It would be game over. Even if Will didn't finish the second race and Will won it, and Kurt Stenberg won it, it would go back on a count back in terms of the number of race wins, which Will does comfortably lead at this point in time. There's a lot of other math going on. One of even the best, or the remote scenarios we talked about was Will could afford, I think it was 2 ninth place finishes, I think it was, and Kurt could win both races, and then there would be a tie, and then again goes back on the count back to Will. But the long and short of it is Kurt's got to win to keep the title hopes alive, Rody, and then he's just got to need a lot of help from all the other drivers that are in the field tonight to make it happen. So mathematically, the statistics say it's possible, but we've seen in this game before, anything can happen, and as Murray Walker once said, it usually does.
Yeah, there is I want to say a history, necessarily a documented history of an entire field banding together to influence results. But I know there was Definitely a favourite in the team's title in Super 2. I think it was last year or the year before. It was ultimately won by Jesse and Darren. But I think there was definitely a push to try and swing that the other way from members of the field. Look, definitely, I think we're probably in a situation where probably half the field either has or is currently driving for a CRE team. But at the same time, a bit of variety is a bit of fun. That said, I mean, giving Kurt the title would make him a back-to-back champion. It would make him, I think, the first back-to-back champion within
Mm-hmm.
ASR Supercars. Um, and look, I don't know. Maybe there's no guarantee that Kurt's going to come back the next year and want to defend that, make a three-peat, but they might want some variety. So, it depends. There are definitely a few wild cards in the field as well. We've got Leonard Grossel back for the first time in seems like forever. He finally remembered what his password was. Zach Brown's out there in one of the guest cars. Scott Murrell's making it 8 different cars that he's guest driven in this season, which is a pretty good measure given there's only 12 rounds. And he has actually doubled up in 1 or 2 occasions as well. So basically, he's turned up for the entire season just using other people's cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's enough sort of enough cats to be thrown amongst the pigeons there.
Certainly is. And look, it's not just all about the top 2 tonight as well. The third, fourth, and fifth place drivers at the moment, they are in a fight of their own as well. So Spec's got a nice little margin at the moment, but it's far from safe. It's it's around about 60-ish points. 61 in fact is the number there. And then Noah Tara's only about another 30 points back of Brenton Foley, and he's actually been looking pretty quick tonight as well, the native South Australian, at the South Australian circuit, the Adelaide Parkland circuit. So that's not a foregone conclusion that third place could potentially change hands tonight as well, as a number of other drivers up and down the field there. Igmanis, who's here tonight, Damon McDonald, who's not, so that's guaranteed to change positions, and Igmanis could even give Lockie Lock a shake there for position 7 on the standings. So it's not all over and done with by any stretch of the imagination all the way through the top 10. So we're now just in a little bit of a short hold here, waiting to make sure that everybody is ready to go. There's a few drivers just waiting to come back into the server. At this stage, it looks like we're set for about 18 runners or 19 runners or so tonight. Rady was actually a pretty decent number with the considering how things have been tracking all season long.
It is, yeah. There are a few more guys indicating interest tonight. Unfortunately, a few having to drop out, chasing hardware problems or just not feeling up to it themselves due to the sort of day they've had. But no, good to have some guys that come back specifically for it to be the last round as well. Maybe they're just trying to renew their memberships, as it were, trying to make sure that they're in consideration for an opportunity for next year. But it's 19. We're probably leaning up towards 19. I think with Dane. Dane is on the way. He's one of a few guys running special liveries tonight. So as I mentioned, Cam is or the Sierra Anson partnership is ending at the end of this year. So Cam is running Cam's running a livery that Coxie painted for him. It's a tribute or a reference to the livery that Lowndes ran in his last round, which coincidentally, was the livery that Jesse Bennett ran the last round in Dev Series. So we've actually seen this livery twice in 2 weeks now. Also, Foley's made some little changes to his car, and Lewis Wedding finally has a finished car. You would notice for what you did see of him at Bathurst that he was missing some sponsors. He has now got the money lined up and the spots lined up to fill the rest of the car out. So I'm not sure whether that's indicative of a run for next year or whether that's literally just getting across the line to get to Adelaide. And if Dane does make it, he's also got a special livery as well, which is a bit of a throwback for him as well. It goes back to a livery he ran back in 2023. Which is a good one to see out there as well.
Certainly is. But still a couple of minutes left on the warm-up clock there, just while everybody's running around, just waiting for a few drivers to jump back into server. So while we wait for that, we will actually have a little bit of a look at a couple of things here. We're not going to hang around for a bit. We did talk about the driver standings before, so that was obviously after the 11 rounds completed of the 12 in the calendar. So we'll quickly go over the page and have a look at 11th through to 20th. There's definitely a few that could change hands here tonight. So Cox and Rutledge, you mentioned those two, 11th and 13th, with that partnership coming to an end at the conclusion of racing tonight. So Rutledge at this stage looks like he will jump over Corey McFarlane if Corey doesn't make it in tonight. a couple of other drivers on there not taking part, so they're looking set to relinquish those positions as a couple of drivers behind them start to jump up the order. So, Ross and Dostal looking to both try and get over the top of Aidan Williams. Darryl Callaghan looking to get over the top of Ryan Smith. And Darren Lognan looks like he's probably going to be leapfrogged by Steve Warwick, with all things considered tonight there as well. So, again, a lot of movement in the driver's standings set to take place in the final round tonight. Of everybody that is in the race tonight so far, there's a couple of drivers yet to that still have a drop round that is in play, that they've actually deducting some points. So Luke Speck, third place for him. He's still got he's actually got a figure in his drop round. So too Brenton Foley, Curtis Igmanis, and Daniel Cox. So they're the four drivers that have something on the table, that haven't missed a round all year basically. So good on them for turning up and making it to all the rounds. What that means is if they actually have a shocker of a round tonight, that it actually is less than the points that they have for their drop round, that will then become their drop round, and it might actually alter the outcome a little bit. So we'll wait and see how that all unfolds. The team's championship, well, that's a foregone conclusion. So the team's title, so CRE Engineering, so Curtis Igmanis and Will Devenish, that is a 100% confirmed team's championship. And they are at the top of the standings there. Likewise, second place is sewn up. So CRE Amped Up Racing, so Lockie Lock and Noah Turra, that's locked up and can't be shifted either. The real interest, Rhodey, is behind. As you said, that CRE Anson Motorsport pairing, they are holding down third place at the moment, but they're going to have a task to hold it down because there's not much of a margin there. There's only about 140 points back to PBF Race Engineering. And look, even Luke Speck, I think, is the only one for SES Shogun here tonight. But if both those two teams in third and fourth have a bit of a shocker, he might be able to get over the top of them there. It's a bit of a remote possibility, but the real interest is going to be between those teams in third and fourth place.
It will be, yeah. And it's interesting as well, just leaning one more into the talking about how much of I wouldn't say interfere, how much of an influence Scott's had on this season. We did the count earlier. He's driven for and assistant teams points for the teams in first, second, third, fifth, sixth, and ninth. Wow. The only team in the top five he hasn't driven for is PBF.
There you go. That's an interesting statistic that I wasn't aware of. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it first here via Rhodey. So that's some new news to me. But anyway, good to see there as well. As I said, that is the top 10. And the Luke McHugh racing cars, they haven't sort of been a bit sporadic all season. So, even Kurt Stenberg, the sole entry in the Antigol Autosport Camaro, might get over the top of them tonight as well. So we're waiting to see how that's all going. And that's the end of the team standings as it sits right now. So that's the team standings, of course, doesn't account for the drop round scenarios as well. The drop round only applies to the Drivers' Championship. Well, I think we've sort of worked it up for a little bit long enough now, but there are a couple of drivers still, what do we call it? Stragglers. There's that are about to get going. Well, the clock's about to go zero on the practice session, and that will be the end of it. So we will officially have a look at the Adelaide Parklands circuit. One of a couple of circuits around the country that are held within I guess you can call it, within reasonable confines of the CBD. So the Adelaide CBD is there, the Adelaide Parklands circuit, or the Parklands area, just off to the southeast of the CBD. And does take up a couple of parts of the circuit into the CBD streets. But Rhodey, it's been one of those circuits that's been a mainstay on the calendar for supercars since the demise of the Adelaide Formula One Grand Prix, although now shortened in length from when it was in the early 2000s to make it a bit more palatable for supercars, but it doesn't diminish the challenge.
No, it doesn't. It's still probably, I'd probably suggest in terms of the racing experience, and this is discounting some of the street circuits that F1 races at, or just more the style of F1 where they would build a street circuit. But I think it's probably in pretty close tussle. I'd argue it slightly edges out Townsville as probably our best street circuit to actually race. I know the spectacle is bigger at places like Gold Coast. I know actually the racing you get here, it's pretty good. Like, it's still got a lot of the street circuit hallmarks. The run through the I think it is chicanes, like the 1, 2, 3 chicane. Like that's the reason why people that if you're struggling with setups, I mean, Foley was one. For one of the first places he looked at was right. What did I run at Gold Coast? Because that 1, 2, 3 flick is very Gold Coast. Up through the staircase, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is a format that's been borrowed elsewhere. Newcastle ran a similar section of corners, and on paper it's just 90-degree corners, but they're all slightly different. They've got some curves you can play with, and you want to kind of sacrifice through 6 to get a run through 7. They obviously get a run down the back straight. 7's changed a little bit in recent years as well, with a wall that really tightened up the exit of that corner, which means you can't carry as much speed out of that corner. Run down to turn 8, it's a turn the same as of itself. Even in the dry, it's still dangerous. In the wet, good luck. While in theory you can go too wide through there, and it's been done in the past. You're a very brave man, and you're going to also be a very slow man trying to go too wide through there. You're going to be knocking off probably at least 20% of the speed you would otherwise be carrying. And then down through 9, 10, 11 onto the dedicated parkland section. The rest of this is actual regular roadway, which makes it a proper straight circuit. Just a really well-designed circuit. It helped probably that that most of this track is derived from the F1 circus coming to town. And it was from the period where they did a pretty good job of designing, designing street circuits to run F1 on. And it's still got a lot of the hallmarks of that. Whereas, modern circuit design hasn't really had much influence on the track, which helps because modern circuit design doesn't always produce as many winners. But really good classic track, Adelaide, and I think it's one of a few tracks that's appeared every year in some form on the ASR calendar.
Yeah, you're right. I can't recall another time that this circuit was off the calendar in ASR. I think it's always been on the calendar, and yes, there were a couple of minor adjustments from the base version of the AMS game that were done. I think Brendan Ross and Lewis Wedding and Nathan Higginson were the three that had a little bit of a hand in it over that time, where they introduced that wall, the one you're talking about on the exit of turn 7, because it was brought inwards, basically up to the edge of the curb to try and stop people from running backside over that curb and trying to, I guess, gain as much of an advantage as possible by just, blatantly carrying as much speed as you dare through turn 7. And then just letting the car wander out and cross over that outside curb. So they brought the wall up to actually prevent that. In recent years, they've actually moved that wall ever slightly so further backwards, which is not quite the way that it is in this version of the game. But nonetheless, it still, tightens up that corner a little bit more. So it did actually make the challenge a bit more difficult for the drivers when that first came in a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
we're not standing on ceremony.
Yep.
Yes, we are not standing on ceremony anymore, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start the show, and that show is called qualifying. So all the drivers we have been waiting for are in today, and we've got 19 that are about to have a major run to the exit of pit lane, as they always tend to do at this particular circuit. So we're waiting to see the inevitable march of cars down the lane. And, well, it's already started. So Mitchell Steele-Allison, the first at the head of the queue. And I think it's in the Damon McDonald car. I think that's Scott Murrell, I believe, who's either running that car or who's actually in that car, Rhodey. Is that correct? Murrell's in that car?
So, yes, Steele-Allison at the head of queue. Scott Murrell's driving the gold monster car that Damon McDonald ran at Gold Coast. And Jacob Palfrey is filling in again for Ethan Knight in his SP Tools 3.
Right, there's a couple of the Camaros back there. Grossel in the front of shot. Then Daniel Cox in his season livery, which we actually have fixed from the Bathurst broadcast. So apologies to, I think, you see Dostal. I reckon he must have broke the speed limit just to get out there and get his nose in front of. Who did he get his nose in front of? Was that Dane Liccardo?
It was Dane, yeah. So a good bit of friendly rivalry between those guys. They've known each other for quite a few years. So Dostal out here running the 10 again. He's run that at Bathurst, and Dane turned up at the last possible second. He's running this livery I mentioned talking about earlier. This is a bit of an homage to the livery he ran in 2023 on the ZB. It does actually have to change a bit, funnily enough, to go from a 4-door hatchback to a 2-door coupe. But it's the important notes have come across pretty well.
Yeah, so here he is, just tucked in behind Dostal now to head up to the first part of the staircase, turn 4. And then, well, I was about to say he's actually, just lit the tyres up a little bit there. So this is being, he's been I know he's been in ASR for a while, but this is very much getting reacquainted with the stallion for him, I think, isn't it? And we can say that figuratively as well as literally because he is in the Mustang.
It is, yeah. I think I can bring up the stats. I have the stats. Dane's last race with us was back at Barbagallo, so he has been out of the seat for the best part of probably 4 or 5 months. Actually, the last time we saw him, effectively, actually was at Simmons. He's been out for a while. He has had a bit of life to deal with, and which happens to plenty of guys all the time, and we do obviously allow for that. Good to have him back, and it's just again one of those guys coming back seemingly to just remind people that they exist, to put themselves out in the driver market for next year, or keep the registration up to date for eligibility for supercars, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Good to see Dan tonight, and he has got the advantage of he's had the likes of a Luke Speck in his corner to help him out, so he should be able to forego some of the early stumbling blocks.
Yeah, that's right. Well, speaking of Luke Speck, he's actually on the move at the moment, up through the centre S and up to the staircase at turn number 4, and then through this left and right. That little wall on the exit of turn number 4 has caught a couple of drivers out in the last couple of years or so. It just juts out. You don't expect it there. You try and carry the speed, and all of a sudden you're chewing up more real estate than you really want to at turn 4, and that wall just grabs you and says, "Nope, that's enough." And stops your car dead in its tracks. So Specky's negotiated that pretty well. He's now down on the run towards the infamous turn 8. Now, there has been no gentleman's agreement at this part of the track. We've given that a little bit of a rub there. There's been no gentleman's agreement for a long time now. I think at least 2 or 3 years now at turn number 8 has pretty much been a case of, look, we're all grown-ups here. If you guys can't either figure it out who's in a position to concede and who's in a position to go through, depending on the situation, then you guys are both going to have the right act read to you after the conclusion of that race. So thankfully, there hasn't been too many more incidents since that came into place. I think everybody sort of knew at that point in time that, we've probably taken the P15S a little bit too much in years gone past. And Speck's first lap is a 19.9, so it's a pretty respectable time for him. Stenberg about to cross the lines, and he will go down to the top with an 18.69, so already raises the bar by 1.2 seconds. And a few other drivers now starting to bring themselves back into play here. I think Steele Allison, he was one of the first drivers across the line. He actually must have got a track violation on the opening salvo because he was the lead driver in the queue that left the lane. And likewise, Murrell behind him. Murrell 1.6 seconds off the top time so far as the championship leader will definitely slots into P2 about a half a second behind Stenberg.
Yeah, so going off of practice times, and there's going to be a little bit of variance there because the way that obviously qualifying works is that you'll be running on the same compound in the race. There are some guys that are probably considering starting on a hard tyre. We had this in Dev Series last week where some guys started on hard, some guys started on softs, and had found different fortunes as the race played on. We're going to see we're going to see that again tonight. But what that does mean is there are a few guys that will qualify quote unquote out of position compared to we were used to seeing them. The metric from practice, the fastest lap was an 18.2 from Will, which is pretty nutty because the next fastest car was Kurt Stenberg with an 18.8, and then Noah Tara with an 18.9. Only 3 cars into the 18s, and that's very quick times. I think the fastest I've seen here in any of our cars has been a 17 in the old Gen 2 car, which is a quicker car on most tracks anyway, but still, within a second of that is pretty good in the Gen 3 car. But yeah, to be getting into the 19s as Specky was, that's a good start. And then, Kurt's already gone a second quicker, so Kurt's pushing up into those 18s now. Yeah. What's going to influence, though, is generally the guys that are sitting at the front or the guys that we feel are out of position from being too quick. They're the guys that are on softs. They're going to start the race on softs. The guys that are out of position from being too slow, they're the ones that we're probably going to see starting on hards. Yeah,
you're right. And that's as Brennan Ross makes a little bit of an error there at the penultimate corner, and that runs him wide, and it runs him off the line at the final corner, turn 14, and he has to gather that up. So that's cost him a good couple of seconds there. He does put time on the clock, but it's down in 13th place, so not an ideal situation for him there. And he'll press on and have another go at another lap with half the qualifying session concluded so far. On to Zach Brown now, another one who's done a couple of appearances this year. And sector 1 split for him, about 9 tenths of a second away from Kurt Stenberg. So keep that form up, you're probably looking at a back end of a top 10 as it sits right now, but still a little bit more to shake out in this session. And I think there was one driver that I noticed hadn't gone out in that session was Darryl Callaghan, and it doesn't look like he's taking any further part in qualifying in the Paint Doctor Mustang.
Yeah, so he'll be starting at the back of the 19 car field.
Certainly will be. So, drivers yet to set a time. This man on screen, Jacob Palfrey, Lewis Wedding, who's back in the lane, and Daniel Cox, who's attempted a couple of laps and has not set a time on the board just yet. And we'll see if we can get an idea of where he is out there on the circuit at the moment. Wait to see if Zach Brown can finish this lap. Lewis Wedding definitely sitting in the garage. He's either leaving it really, really late or he's not going to set a time at all. Brown goes P8. I did say he was looking at that sort of back end of the top 10, so he actually had a much better middle and final sector to the lap. Considering he was 9/10 of a second down through sector 1, he actually only ended up 1.6 off the top time, so pretty respectable, actually pretty respectable recovery in that second and thirds of the lap. Now Daniel Cox, so this is one for him. As you said, this team will disband, I guess you can call it, and we don't know the full schematics of what's going to happen with it next year, but his last attempt to, probably second last attempt I would say here at a flying lap here, gets through the opening chicane pretty cleanly. That's the part of the circuit I think a lot of drivers genuinely will struggle with, is what the line is to get the best optimal run through there without triggering the curb strike sensors.
Yeah, there's an art of getting through there without triggering the curb strike sensors. There's also the margin then within that of what the legal is what's safe and what you're going to find people doing probably in the middle of the race, and slash if they've got a big margin to protect, versus what you're going to do that is legal, that is if you're chasing someone down or you're chasing the last tenths in qualifying, or you're at the end of the race and somebody is hunting you down.
Yes.
But just because it's legal does not mean it's necessarily all that safe, and also we're probably going to find lines vary across the stint as tyre wear gets in as well, because once your tyres start to fall off, you're going to lose a bit of your safety margin when it comes to correcting a slide before it turns into a snap of oversteer the other way and feeds into a concrete wall.
That's right. So Cox now down to the final corner. This has been a pretty clean lap from what we've seen so far, so this will be a time on the board for him. Leaves plenty of margin on the outside of the last corner as well. Gets to the line and goes to P16. So maybe that's just a phasing in of the tyre here. He's on the other side. Oh, I'll tell you what, that wasn't a phasing in. That's actually that's a big moment for him at the opening chicane there. So this lap I think will be pretty much thrown in the bin, and he'll probably try and bring that car around in enough time to have another crack and see if he can improve the time. Scott Murray will probably get one more bite at the cherry here. He's on a flying lap. He's actually moved himself up to 4th place, so pretty good effort from him in this Mustang. We understand he's probably on the radar to be moving up full-time into the Supercars Championship next year. Well, actual fact, that was a curb track infringement for him on that previous lap, so this is his last effort as he goes through the centre chicane. Oh, and he gets the wall and he spins and he turns himself across the circuit and into the concrete fence, so there'll be no more improvement for Murrell. Bit of a moment
and
there.
And that is unfortunate for Scotty.
Yeah, very indeed, very much a moment for him. So there's been a little bit of movement at the front of the field. So Devonish has now jumped ahead of Kurt Stenberg on an 18.4, unseen to us. So Devonish, that means he's probably going to be starting on the soft tyre. He's been able to get that time there. Steele Allison's now jumped up above Noah Turra, so some few times starting to come in thick and fast here. Turra was personal best in the first sector, personal best in the second sector. He will have some time on the clock. He'll take the shortest possible run to the line here. He goes back to P3, and he's gone ahead of Steele Allison by 0.2 of a second. So I'd say he probably needs to press on with that, because Steele Allison's doing likewise about 400 or 500 metres further up the road, although his first sector time leaves a little bit to be desired, 0.2 down, and I think he's tucked in here behind Brandon Dostal, but the draft is not all that powerful here, Rody.
No, that, and he's probably, well, he is a bit far away to really get any meaningful benefit, Steele Allison there. But yeah, around here, it's only really this section you're on right now where there's any benefit to the slipstream. And even then, there is a defined speed at which you can carry turn 8, and turn 8, crucially, especially with these cars, is not flat. Yeah. So you can get a better run up to turn 8, you can save a bit of time, but you're actually not going to carry that speed on the run down to the hairpin.
No, certainly not. Steele Allison, I think he might have, he's like coughed up another 10th in that second sector there, so I don't think he's even going to finish the lap. No, he's not. He'll come straight to the pits. Likewise, the championship leader, Will Devenish, he came straight to the pits at the end of that session as well, as Brandon Dostal's just gone across the line. That actually moved him up into 10th place, so good effort from him. Bought the Pertec machine. Number 10 occupies 10th place on the road. So the top 10 there, Devenish from Stenberg, Turra, Steele Allison. Murrell ended up 5th, so he got jumped by a couple of drivers in that session there. Speck ended up 6th. Cam Rutledge into 7th place, which is a very respectable effort for him. Zach Brown into 8th. Gigmanis 9th, and Brandon Dostal 10th. And then everybody else down there, so Ross and Palfrey, Foley and Liccardo, Grossel, Cox, Steve Warwick, and Lewis Wedding did not, he attempted a couple of laps, but then opted to put the queue in the rack, so to speak, and didn't contest the rest of the session further. And of course, we saw that Daryl Callaghan didn't make it out for qualifying, so he's going to be the 19th and final runner, as we understand it.
Yeah, so great work by Cam's a notable one, and actually Cam leads into sort of where he's at and where things are at for next year potentially. But for what matters tonight, this is relatively, comparatively speaking, the least practice he's been able to afford for the round. And in saying this number, it's going to sound like a lot for some, but he's only been able to put in 3 nights of practice for Adelaide. But probably part of that leans into the fact that, yeah, we've been here every year, so there is, knowledge to lean back on. It is very much to a point, a track where you can always drive it with your eyes closed at this point because you know where it goes. But yeah, it's one of those weird things, and it's not the first time I've run into it. But maybe it's the argument of over practicing or maybe over analyzing what you're doing on track. But relatively speaking, yeah, Cam's had no practice, so to hop in and to put it 7th is a really good run. And maybe it says something as to Cam's affluence for the track, or just maybe there is a better way to get at Cam's ultimate pace that isn't hours and hours and hours and hours of work.
No, that's right. So, and he's usually one of those ones, as you said, he puts in a lot of practice with all the CRE crew that usually turn up on at various times throughout the week leading up to the event, and they all have the social aspect of it as well as the competitive aspect. So that's the way that all rolls sometimes. Actually, also noticing as well, we might actually end up with a 20th entrant, which would be Lockie Lock. So he looks like let me put it this way, he's blaming it on the old daylight savings trick. Well, he's known that for a couple of weeks now. I think we're about a month further removed from daylight saving, and Bathurst was the last event we held that had that situation. So you've got to work that all out, Lockie. And we're now entering into the warm-up session here for a little bit, just to give the drivers a little bit of time just to practice the old, what we call them, the old standing starts. As, well, at the moment, Scott Murrell doesn't look like he's going anywhere. He's staying in the pit lane there. And a few drivers are on their way around to the grid to go and probably do a couple of practice starts and a couple of pit-in attempts, I would say, here as well. It's usually the way that things roll, and particularly because this is a race that's going to end up with pit stops that need to be performed. There is a compulsory tyre requirement for both races tonight. Both the hard and the soft tyre compounds, as Roddy alluded to, do have to be used at some point in each race. So you've got to do bare minimum 1 lap on each of those compounds, depending on how the situation shakes out.
And for what it matters, part of the reason for my slight airiness of brain through qualifying was, amongst other things, I was keeping a note on who qualified on what tyre. So, with the exception of Daryl Callaghan, who obviously didn't spend time at all and has free choice of the compounds, we got a pretty good idea of who's going to be starting on what. And it was more or less as I put it. Most of the guys towards the back, the exception were a couple of the guys that maybe weren't gelling with the car or hadn't had enough seat time to really get the reasonable pace of the soft tyre. Were the ones that were running on the hard tyre. So the notable ones, and I can talk about it because I've been given permission to talk about it. at least for race 1, PBF as a whole, with the exception of Mitch, given where Mitch is qualifying, are starting on the hard tyres. So that's Foley, Leonard, Rossi, and Steve Warwick. And in addition, Coxey as well, I believe, is going to be starting on the hard tyres for race 1 as well. And we did see in Dev Series last week that if you could match or keep up with the guys on your soft tyres, on their soft tyres while you're on your hards, and you use that to good effect in race 2, and I believe Darren Kemp race time did actually as well. You then have basically the ability to just pull away from the guys who come back out on their hard tyres because you've just got the pace advantage hand in fist. And I think the best example of that was blanking on who it was now. This isn't good. I believe it was Mitch who pulled away at the front, completely uncontested in
the development series race.
Yes. I'm blanking in my head whether it was Mitch or it was Damon, but I'm pretty sure Damon was actually out of the seat at that time because new father.
Yes, he is, Damon McDonald. Congratulations to him. So he did miss that development series round, and understandably, the love of his life, unfortunately, has decided, no, I don't want you racing. I need some help. So he's opted to give that up for the night, which, I mean, is a very it's a typical thing, isn't it? I mean, I've been through that situation twice before, and you know, you got to know where your requirements are needed, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. Okay, so about 70 seconds or so left in this practice session, just to get everybody up and running, and one or two drivers just taking the opportunity to sort themselves out with a couple of things and get themselves back in before proceedings get underway tonight, officially. So we've talked long and hard now about the point situation. We don't need to go into that again. We will be touching on it throughout the night, but of course we know that the front two drivers in the championship starting positions 1 and 2 in the race tonight, at least for race number 1, and we're just going to see what unfolds from there. That's the first part of the night, I think, for all of us, is just to get through race number 1, see how it all unfolds, and then from there we'll have a bit more of an indication as to what's going on with the race and with how the championship's potentially going to play out. Brody, closing thoughts from you? Anything that you can add before we go into the first race of the night?
I was just going to note, completely outside of the broadcast services, that I believe we might need to restart them up because I get the feeling the Lewis that we have in the server is not actually a real human Lewis, because I did to see a Lewis try to join. A second Lewis tried to join and get kicked through the vehicle, so I think he's lagged out, but his account has been left in the game. It's one of those weird things Danis does. Yep. So I think his fake account needs to be booted so he can get back in. But yes. It's been interesting to see how things go. Obviously, I've got a good view now on where the strategy calls are going to go. But it also depends on approach, and we've had this in the past. I go back to my last time in Supercars here. We realised at one point what the fastest strategy was for the race, but we decided that running the fastest strategy was boring, and it wasn't fun. And I think the gist of it at that time was maybe a soft hard versus a soft with a bit of saving on the first run of soft or something like that, or maybe it was hard and soft. We decided at that point that, look, you could slog through the hards, and that's where the hards were a couple of years ago, to be fair, but we could slog through on the hards, which would be quicker. We could do soft, lose time in the pit stop, but actually enjoy our racing because the car actually felt fun to drive. I think there's probably a little bit of argument with that as well, because there are probably a few guys down the back that, given where they're qualifying, could have gone out there on hards and maybe had an advantage in the race. But it's going to be more than just what's the fastest strategy out there, because you're going to have to deal with traffic, you're going to have to deal with the track itself. If there's a safety car, if and when that comes, and to be fair, we've been pretty good at avoiding safety cars in Supercars this year, but if one does come, and when it comes, that's going to influence things as well. You might find that it gives you a free kick on your strategy. You might find that it turns a one-stop into a two-stop to make the best use of the strategy option presented to you. But then you've got the argument as well, which I had and didn't do the math on appropriately last week, of are you that far down that pitting would put you behind the leader and then force you to go a lap down due to safety car shenanigans. So that's something for the guys to consider as well.
It certainly is. Well, Last driver that we needed has arrived, and the timing could not be sweeter. It's not too far away now from getting the first race of tonight underway. Race number 22 of 23 in the 2025 championship. So all the drivers now getting ready to line up and tackle this first 32 lap encounter. So as you recall, it's been a little bit of a change this year. So from last year when there were 90 kilometre dual races, the distance has been upped by a further 10 kilometres this year. So it puts about another 4 laps on the clock for the main game drivers. And then the development series drivers actually had their races lifted from 80 Ks to 90 Ks. So they did 28 a week ago. A couple of them are on double duty tonight as well because they took part in the racing a week ago. The grid is underway. We are ready to go here, Rhodey. Let's run through this race 1 starting order.
Alrighty, starting off of pole is Will Devonish for the second to last time this season. Well, no guarantee for next race is progressive, but for the race 1 he is starting from pole. Second is Kurt Stenberg, back again for Andy Cole Autosports in the Kingsley Chicken car, running the number 1, and if things go his way, chance of holding on to that number 1 by the end of tonight. Third is Noah Turra for Sierra Duck Racing with the motor backing he's been running all year, with Mitchell Steele-Allison in fourth for PBF by SES. That's another team that's probably on the move again into 2026. Fifth is Scott Murrell filling in for Q Racing again. This is his third time with the team, but first time filling in for Damon McDonald's car, running the same livery that Damon ran at the Gold Coast, with Luke Speck in 6th for SES Shogun, just one of those cars tonight. Speck is running his Grand Theft 6 car. That has recently been delayed another couple of months, so he's going to have to hold out a little longer for that game. 7th is Cam Rutledge in his tribute livery for his last appearance under the Sierra Ansel Motorsport banner for this season, with Zach Brown in 8th in the guest Brad Jones Racing car put together by Daniel Cox. 9th is Curtis Ekmanis. He's running the Whittaker's Peanut Slab car again. He's seemed to be quite preferential towards this livery, with Brandon Doss still starting from the pit lane, so he's missed the start, in 10th in the number 10 with Pertec backing. 11th is Rossi filling in again for Phil Boak. Good to see Rossi out again tonight, with Jacob Palfrey filling in for Ethan Knight in SES in 12th. 13th is Brenton Foley running his old tribute livery for tonight, with Dan Liccardo in 14th in his special livery. 15th is Leonard Grossel back after a bit of hiatus for Brentstall PBF Blackshaws, with Daniel Cox in 16th in his fixed season livery. 17th is Steve Warwick, making 2 of those Brentstall cars on the grid tonight, with Darryl Callahan in 18th. Lockie Locke turning up the last minute to slot into 19th on the grid, and Lewis Wedding, having not set a time in qualifying, will be lining up 20th.
Thank you, Rhodey. It's that's your back of the grid there as the last few drivers are in place. This is how things go down in ASR, ladies and gentlemen, and we are underway here in the first race of the night. And Kurt Stenberg, as he has usually done, he gets to the head of the field. He got away so quickly we didn't have a chance to get the graphic up, but he has cleared away very, very handsomely with a beautiful start from the front row, and into turn 4 goes this field. Right down the back of the pack as well. There is a little bit of argy-bargy going on here, as there usually does, as you try and scythe your way and cut your way through the field. You've got Locke, who's on up to 17th. There's a couple of stragglers off the back of the field. One of those is the 19th place Brenton Foley, who's had an absolute shocker of a start. And then Brandon Dostal, of course, had to wait for the first driver to cross the pit lane entry. Across the first timing beacon before he could get underway. And Foley's already in a bit of trouble. He's gone off the road. That's at turn number 4 and 5. So he's had a really shock of a start. In fact, he's actually got a front right puncture. So that's gone terribly wrong for Brenton Foley.
Yeah, so that's both actually Foley and Dan Liccardo, both the front left punctures. So I'm going to guess both hit the wall in a similar spot. There may be separate incidents, but either way, that's dumb strategy for them. So Foley out there on the hard, trying to get along first, and that's gone in the toilet. And Dane, he's going to have to hit the first couple laps as well. Yeah, we're about to get a bit of an idea as to what happened there as the field is actually completing lap number 1 as we speak. So let's actually have a bit of a look at what happened to Foley and Liccardo. Was there a little bit of contact here? So
About to find out. Foley was ahead of Ross going into the opening couple of corners. I went for the inside move and Foley's nailed him in the rear. And I don't think Foley was quite aware of what was in front of Dane Liccardo there and needed to probably just be on the anchors a touch earlier, but went for that move and probably went for the move maybe just a little bit too late.
Yeah, I think unfortunately where Dane was maybe I wouldn't say too cautious, but definitely being a bit more cautious given the gaggle of cars. And Foley, it's easy to do when you're 3 or 4 cars deep to not see what's in front of you. You just see the car in front of you is slow, just like boom, opportunity for a pass. Dane moved across legally, he moved across and then broke. There wasn't an issue there, but it did catch Foley out and he was just too close, just led to contact. And unfortunately, they both hit the wall in about the same way, very sort of synchronised accident. It's meant punctures for the pair of them, and they're both currently in the lane, or leaving the lane. They're both having to do the lane, which is at risk of putting a lap down.
Yeah, it is. Well, Foley's actually going to be, I think he will go a lap down at this point if he's not too careful, because he's actually just leaving the lane now. This field's starting to wind its way around the final couple of corners. We're looking down at 8th place man Cam Rutledge here, and yes, the race leader has just gone across the line. So Foley's going to emerge probably just in front of Zach Brown and Cam Rutledge here as he comes out. In actual fact, Brent Foley off to the left of your shot there, he's actually waiting for the field to go through, so he knows there's actually no chance to, there's no point barging out into a battle that's not your own fight. He's going to need to get a bit of strategy going here. I think he's going to need a safety car at some point, and then he's going to need to be able to stay out and go back around and make sure he doesn't get trapped by the safety car to get a lap back. Because of course there's no lucky dog scenario in, or no wave by scenario I should say, in ASR Supercars. It is of course a situation where you need to get there off your own merit. You need to be in that position to get it back, or be very, very lucky to get the lucky dog, which will then just give the first car that is 1 lap down a free pass. So settling down a little bit now, a couple of 2x2 battles, so race leaders are starting to kick away here with Noah Tara trying to hold his ground over Mitchell Steele-Allison, Speck just trailing a little bit, then Murrell in behind him. Devonish and Stenberg just down the road by the tune of about 1.5 seconds. You just see Devonish just starting to disappear out of the shot there as he's right up close to the rear bumper of the King's Chicken number 1.
He is, yeah, so he's... I'm not saying I've been asked not to mention Will starts, but I'll turn it around and say Kurt's start was that good. It looked like it was a jump start, but he has managed to turn around that early advantage to Stenberg, and he's able to put the pressure back on. These guys are probably now getting into a window where they're starting to think about time conservation. I believe the reports were is about 8 laps of good soft tyre running that you get out of the cars. I know that in Dev Series we're pushing at about 11 to 12. But obviously the cars do behave slightly differently. These cars do rely on their tyres a little bit more given the lack of aero. So we're probably going to start seeing cars in maybe lap 9, lap 10, although they could go a little longer than that.
Yeah.
But definitely a consideration of these guys within their battling is tyre conservation, because some of the guys running back behind them, if they're started with their tyres, could actually get a net benefit out of this stint.
That's right. You can see already Stenberg was a little bit quicker through turn number 8, opened up the margin quite nicely, but Devonish much better on the brakes down at turn 9, able to close that margin back up again. So a bit of an elastic gap this one at the minute. And you were right, you actually have talked about the tyre situation here as we hone in on the Pallet Control Solutions race facts. So the amount of laps, well, the lap count's actually wrong there. I'm not sure what's going on there tonight. That's the second error for the night, so people are going to shoot me later, I think. But it is 32 laps, not 21. That's probably about the maximum distance I think you would probably want to do on a hard tyre is 21 laps, to be honest with you. But the big important point there is that compound crossover. That's the biggest issue that we want to see tonight. So in development series, there are a few drivers that went a little bit earlier than others, sort of around Sands lap 9, lap 10, which is a bit earlier. A few other drivers decided to try and stick it out on the soft tyre a little bit more. And then you had the drivers that were on the hard tyre trying to eke it out and get out to lap 13, or 15 and beyond, I guess, to try and give them the most amount of laps possible on the softer tyre and try and make the biggest benefit from it. So that's really what we're going to be looking at here. Which drivers started on the soft and have got to do the hard, and what tyre they managed to cross that over, versus how everybody else that started on the hard, how can they keep their tyres intact, and can they actually make a reasonable gain when the drivers that come in for that crossover, or when the soft ice really starts to go away, can they actually make some headway and get it to a point where they can actually make a net benefit from a tyre that is not really the favourite race tyre versus the tyres that are a little bit too worn on the soft tyre if you go a little bit too long. So there's still a little bit of time to play out before we get to that. We're probably going to expect to see the first stops, I guess, around about lap 12, I think is probably ready. That's probably our ideal prediction, isn't it? We might see a couple go a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I've just noticed one that was well early. I'm not. I think it was an intentional strategy call towards the point, but also not. Zach Brown has been through the lane. He actually very nearly made contact. I think he made slight contact on the way in. I think he was very last minute decision on when to come in. I don't know whether this is a tactical decision on his point of view, or whether he's out there on a fact-finding mission for the likes of Lewis Wedding and or Brendan Ross, being that they are all former drivers of the Big Rain Racing / Pixel Brothers factory stable. But whether he's out there is a bit of a fact-finding mission for Lewis, given the lack of seat time for Lewis. That said, Zach was running up with the likes of, I believe it was Cam Rutledge when he pitted. So maybe a strategy call, but he's very early. He's only got like about 4 laps out of the soft tyres. So I'd hope for his sake that he's maybe burnt them up somewhere and just has to come off them, because I feel like 4 is too short of a soft tyre stint.
Yeah, I think that there's something else at play going on there. Maybe a bit of fuel that wasn't put in the car or something like that. Maybe you're having to correct the situation there, because you will have to put some fuel in the car to make it home. But you don't have to full tank it. I guess you can start on the full tank, but then you don't have to put the full amount of fuel in to get home. The tyre crossover is, of course, the biggest issue of the day when it comes to making all that work out. So the field's settling down a little bit here. Biggest mover and shaker so far in the field, Lewis Wedding, up 8 spots.
Yeah, he's done a really good job to try and pick off through. And actually, a few drivers had to negotiate on the way through. I mentioned the hard tyre runners. A good example of the hard versus soft tyre pace at the moment is looking at Daniel Cox. He's actually improved on his qualifying position, but he was a little higher in the field as things broke out in the early laps. As things sit now, though, he's trying to get some good juice out of his hard tyres. He doesn't have to worry about pushing them too hard. Whereas the likes of behind him, which includes his teammate and Lockie Lock trying to get past him at the moment, they're out there on the softs. They want to try and push forward to try and get some pace out of them. Whereas Coxie is hoping that his tyre choice is going to back him in at the back end. And actually, at the moment, he's the last one on track, running within the same window as the leaders. Obviously, we had a few that pitted early for damage. So he's actually the last one on track as representative marker for where the hard tyres are. Outside of Coxie, it's then Leonard, Grossel and Steve Warwick and Brendan Ross as well. So they're all in around Lewis. So Lewis is going to have a few easy options potentially going forward, given he's out there on the softs. He will have a tyre advantage on pace on a few of these guys, depending on how much the race stays out.
He's actually started to close the margin down to Grossel pretty quickly for 11th place as well. So he's starting to find his feet a little bit here. It may very well be 11th place for him in the next lap or two. He enters the start of the 8th lap, so 1/4 distance about to be chalked up in this race, and be about 11 or so minutes for the race leaders, so it gives you a rough idea that we're going to be racing for around about 45 minutes of race tonight. So pretty decent hit out, 90 minutes of running and 10 minutes of qualifying, so plenty of track time for the drivers tonight, as these two Camaros are probably going to start having a little bit of an unusual dance. For me, Brody, it's such an unusual thing with Lewis Wedding seeing 85 on the car instead of his usual 89. That's been something that's just thrown me for 6 since he's come back, because I knew he's been quite particular with that number, but I guess there is a bit of a meaning behind why he's gone with 85. Not sure if you're aware of what it is or not, but if you do, you can enlighten me.
I'm not. I was trying to do the mental head math, and I mean, I've got an option in my head as to how it might work, but at the same time, no, actually it wouldn't, because Lewis isn't that old.
Come on, Rody. I think he hears that we're both going to be in trouble.
Yeah. I've asked him a few times about bits and bobs of his livery. The one thing I haven't actually bothered to ask him is the number, which, it's in the same sequence as the 89 he's used to running. I feel like there's going to be, there's more meaning behind it. He wouldn't have just pulled out of the hat, there would be meaning behind it. And I don't know if I can talk to him later tonight, I can ask him about that. But as far as I'm aware, I don't actually know why he's running the 85.
Okay, there you go. Well, I also don't know the answer to this question. Nawatara, who was up in 3rd place, has actually now gone down to 6th place and has had a couple of, what's he had? The last lap was a 19, no, his fastest lap was a 19.3. His last lap was 1 minute 29.0, so he's gone off the road somewhere at some point and dropped a bunch of spots. He's just grabbed it back from Scott Murrell. I think he must have gone off at the final couple of corners. Very similar to, I think, what we saw Brendan Ross do in qualifying, where you just get that, so you ride that curve maybe a little bit too much at turn 13. So when you come through here, so this is turn 10, and then 11 and 12 is the next left hand up, and then you get to this one that goes to the right, and if you get this line all wrong, it can feed you off into that grass, and you can see some tyre tracks there, so I'm wondering if that's the reason why he's had a bit of a tardy finish to the previous lap, and that's why he dropped a spot to Steele Allison and to Speck, and then very, very briefly to Murrell.
No, I went back and had a look. Actually, it was in a good battle, and I suppose it shows us sort of the pace that Noah's had sort of secretly in the background. So Wills put the move on Kurt Stenberg and has started to pull away. Kurt's very much conserving tyres because he was actually getting caught by Noah. Noah went to pass on at the last corner, and Kurt's turned in as he's put up alongside, and basically, I don't think it was planned. I think it was sort of a very optimistic dive perhaps from Noah, and Kurt didn't exactly know he was there, but with Noah on the inside, he kind of got fed ever so slightly into the rubber tyres and concrete wall on the inside, and that grabbed the front right corner of his car and spun it around 90 degrees. So in the process of trying to extricate himself from that without impacting the cars behind him, he's had to sort of take his time to do that properly, and that's dropped him 3 or 4 spots to the drop.
There you go. I'll tell you what, Palfrey's now been passed by Leonard Grossel, and Lewis Wedding is now the next man's trying to line him up here as they come down to towards turn 8, and Palfrey, a bit of a sluggish exit, but there's no room here. So if you can get this turned in, you can get the accelerator pedal pumped in there, you can do what Wedding's about to do, and you can get down the inside with a really nice slingshot through the corner, and he's got that done, and he gets through on Palfrey pretty quickly and pretty easily at the end of the day. So that's a well-constructed pass. Knew that he had the pace on him, but then just decided just to back it off a little bit early, get the turn in right, and try and get on the accelerator as early as possible for turn number 8, which he did, and he was able to drive out of there much quicker than the Mustang and got down the inside of turn 9 in a flash.
Yeah, there's that. I get the impression as well that either there was maybe a small error from Palfrey, that, or as respect to Lewis, actually, I've just noticed Kurt Stenberg's just come through the lane that last lap as well.
Yeah, that's a bit early.
Because I thought he was conserving price push a bit longer, so maybe, well, we'll see how everyone else behaves, everyone's response to that, but that's probably the start of the actual window for the soft tyre runners. I think maybe for Palfrey's sake, maybe just the presence of Lewis, and maybe we talked about this in the past this year about picking the fights that are actually yours to have. Palfrey might have felt given, although they've probably had about the same amount of seat time this year in the Supercars series. Palfrey's been an up-and-comer. Lewis, although he did step back from racing for about 12 months, is very much still an elder statesman of the league. He probably doesn't want to go ruffling feathers unless he actually feels he's got the pace to challenge him.
That's right. Just keeping an eye on Stenberg here because he's now tucked in behind, he gets the mirror there on turn number 8, behind Steve Warwick and Jacob Palfrey, and Warwick going for the move there and actually getting that done. Stenberg will try and pick the pocket of Palfrey here, and there's a little bit of contact. That's a mistake, I think, from Palfrey, and I'll be hoping that Stenberg has avoided a bit of serious damage there. It looked like it was more side to side than anything else, but that was definitely a moment that I don't think he was expecting. What I was about to say was I was keeping an eye on what the deficit was from Stenberg to Will Devonish out in front as that sits down. It's a bit of a replay of this moment down here at turn number 9, because this was a bit of a moment here, Brody. I don't think we've ever seen this before. So Palfrey's sort of gone a bit too wide, realised Steve Warwick was there, he's gone for the turn in. Oh, he's lit it up as well. That's what's done the damage. He's actually, the wheel spins actually just sort of pushed him back towards Stenberg, who was very quickly trying to move through on that for that position. Yeah,
so that was really unfortunate just for Palfrey at the time where he's at. Probably also the part of playing into that is that he is now pushing the deep end of where those softs are at. He's probably not too far off pitting. He's really trying to get the car to last. We talked about it earlier, drivers mentioning that 8 tyres was about the happy window for where the softs actually wanted to be.
Is in.
Push a bit further than that, but
sorry,
yeah, Will was in now.
Yep, and a few others are as well. And the reason I was keeping an eye on that gap was exactly for this reason, because Stenberg it had levelled off at about 36.2 seconds, and Stenberg on that last lap got it down to into the mid 35 seconds. So he the issue was there that the tyre was quicker at that particular part of the lap. But the problem for Stenberg is he's got a ton of traffic at the moment. He's trying to work his way through. So this might actually be pretty good timing for Devonish as Rutledge goes through to lead the race. He might be able to get back out in front here. In fact, he will get comfortably back out in front, and he'll probably have about half the front straightaway in the advantage. But that timing of that pit stop was actually pretty critical for Will Devonish, because if he had waited maybe another lap or two, he probably would have surrendered the lead.
Yeah, I think that... Oh, Brendan Ross is out of the race. There was a yellow through the first sector.
Yes, there was.
Brendan Ross.
Yeah, so that's something that I think we've just seen has popped up on our screens there, and we'll see if we can get a bit of an idea as to maybe what has happened there to Brendan Ross. But yes, there was a yellow flag that had come out very briefly in that sector. So let's have a bit of a look here. The old Paint Doctor replay will always reveal all. So Ross had actually gone through ahead as Devonish pit stops. Okay for Brendan Ross, and well, that'll make some sense. He's gone for a bit of a wild ride through the curbs by the looks of it. Didn't go tripping through the daisies, he went tripping over the curbs, and I think that's killed the engine aboard the PBF 046.
That will. So unfortunately for Ross, it is a 2-race night, so we can go back to race 2. Unfortunately for the team, they've got to rebuild a car.
Yeah, that's right. So, well, there's no such rebuilding in this game, is there? It's just a case of, just hit the reset button, she'll be fine. So there we go. Anyway, so stabilised out in front now. So Devonish with actually goes up to second place there. I think it's Cam Rutledge has come into the lane. That reveals Devonish's teammate Igmanis in the lead of this race. Now, what tyre did he start on? Because he was sort of partway down the order. He's on the I think it's the white side soft tyres here. Brady, correct me if I'm wrong. The white.
Yes. So Igmanis is still on the softs. Rutledge pitted that lap off of the soft tyres as Lewis Wedding was following him behind him. As things sit, the top outside of Termo, the rest of the top 10, with the exception also of Palfrey, are out there on hard tyres now. Whether they started the race on hards, the likes of Leonard Grossel and Steve Warwick, or whether they've pitted onto the hards, the likes of Devonish, Stenberg, and Speck, Steele, and Lachlan Turra.
There you go. Okay, so that's all settling down now over the next couple of minutes or so. I guess these are the hard tyre runners that haven't pitted yet. We're probably expecting to see them in sort of closer to lap 20 there. And some of these soft tyre runners we'll expect to see in. There's Igmanis into the pits. And there goes Will Devonish back into the lead of the race. Stenberg has also cleared Leonard Grossel just in the last few seconds or so. Oh, a little bit of a lock-up for the 666 there. Very lucky not to drill the back of the number 1 Camaro. And now, with probably about 2 lap newer tyres, Will Devonish has a 5.8 second lead over Kurt Stenberg. And Stenberg's last lap there was a 22 flat. Devonish 20.4 as well. So now that Stenberg's cleared the 666, we'll get to see whether there actually is a bit more of a pace difference here or not. So margin's actually gone out to more than what it was. It's now nearly 6 seconds more than what it was after Devonish repassed Stenberg after losing the lead at the beginning of the race. And well, this is now the mountain you've got to climb. You've got half the race to go, or just over half the race to go. This is the mountain you've got to climb here. You've got to figure out all the logic and all the logistics about how to make this one work if you're going to get back to the top of the pile.
Yeah, I think realistically Kurt's answer to this, short of an external influence, is just to be the faster driver, because he's going to be on worse tyres. He's been out there for longer than Will has on the hards, but if he's got car pace, now's the time to put it down, because I'd say there's a bulk of the reason that he ended up this far back is early and got caught in traffic, whereas Will was able to, whether through luck or good planning, find a little slot to just pop himself into that meant he could basically get up to speed at his own speed and then start attacking straight away. That's sort of what's done the damage for Stenberg, and I suppose Stenberg's question to himself and or the engineering team probably asking themselves the question now is, did he need to pit as early as he did? Because if he'd waited to pit later, he probably could have the same situation as Will, dropped into clean air and or dropped in around Will, and would have been in a position to more easily make this a fight to the end of the race, whereas now he's going to make up 6 seconds just to have that discussion.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess the same can be said for all the drivers that are still yet to pit versus the ones that have as well. You know, it's about that call. You know, do you actually want to try and do something a little bit different, try and get your opponent thinking on their feet a little bit, you know, questioning whether they have made the right decision. I guess in Stenberg's mind, the strategy seemed like it actually was going to work, because he'd come out, he'd gotten those tyres up to temperature, and he'd very quickly got that margin, or that margin had started to shrink back. So when it had stabilised at around about 36 or so seconds, and it started to then come down to the 35s, actually it looked like the strategy would work. It was just Will had to react to it at a particular point in time. And then all of a sudden Stenberg caught the traffic, and then that sort of has been the undoing, hasn't it? So it looked like it wasn't going to be too bad, but you've got to take those risks sometimes, don't you? You've got to make those calculated gains, and Rutledge trying to make a bit of a gain here on the Brandon Dostal machine, Brandon's having a little bit of a moment there, lighting the rears up, trying to get that car to cooperate, as Rutledge trying to apply the blowtorch here as he goes down into the last couple of corners, rides that curb, here's up the inside. No, Dostal actually peels off, goes to the pit lane. So that's a free pass for Rutledge, who's already stopped, and his teammate right behind him as well, and so too Curtis Egmanis. So there you go, that moves Cam back up into the top 10. The only drivers I think yet to stop from inside the top 10 are the two PBF Renstall cars and Lockheed Lock, I think, Rody. They're the only ones that seem, they're a little bit out of position here, but of course the hard tyre runners they are.
Yeah, no, Lock did start on the
Lock does start on the soft,
so,
sorry, yes.
Actually, no, sorry, good point, actually, no. He didn't qualify. What about Lockie on my stat keeping? I'm actually not sure what he started on. So he could be, given where he's at, it would make sense that he started on the hards. The fact he's floating around the likes of the Steve Warwick and the Leonard Grossel in terms of time relative to the leader. Because, yeah, given where he started at the back, he would have had to pit basically from, I think, pretty close to the lead, or within the lead pack, to be slotting into where Will is now. I think it's more likely he started on the hards, given where he was going to start, and thought, you know, it's better to just try and slog through this one. And then come back out on the soft tyres at the end. But we'll see. If he pits in the next 6, 7, 8 laps, then that confirms that. If he doesn't, then he started on the softs. He's had a really good run from essentially the back of the field.
He's on the yellow sidewall compound at the moment, so that says to me he's on the hard tyre. So he's still managed to make this work. He's actually been pretty consistent with the lap times as well. When I'm looking at it here, his best lap's a 1 minute 22.3, and the last time he just did a 1 minute 22.383 to a 361. So he's actually trying to be as consistent as he possibly can, and trying to make these tyres last as long as he can. I guess he's one of the ones probably holding out for a safety car as long as he possibly can before he comes in to take that soft tyre service. With the penalty you pay coming into the pit lane of around about 40 seconds, including the stop, he will look like he'll probably come out around about Zach Brown at this particular point in time, but he will have a set of soft tyres on, so he wouldn't be able to charge through. But the next man up the road from Zach Brown is Lewis Wedding, and there's about a 15-second gap there. So you've got to make sure you can, when you come in for the stop, that you are actually going to reap the benefit that you try to reap when the time actually comes. So for him, it'll be interesting to see how long this goes on for, but his crossover point, I think, is going to be probably about what I had on the incorrect graphic, and that's probably going to be about lap 21, and I think he's probably starting to think about that now, given he just ran a little bit long at the last corner.
Yeah, they're running deep or wide a couple of spots here. The car's just not really wanting to comply with inputs whatsoever for the most part. So yeah, probably not too far off in. And I did just confirm, yeah, that he's been seeing consistent laps since he started. We started from a track cut in lap 2, so he has been out there on the hards, which sensible decision to a point, given sometimes the chaotic nature of the mid pack, to just sort of settle in and just run your own race and just sort of pick them off as you can, rather than trying to really push as hard as you need to make the soft tyre justify the first stint. He's got the other side of the point of what Will Devers and Kurt have had, where they were tossing up between getting the most out of the soft tyres and not running them to the point where they were actually, hurting them, as we mentioned, the tyre crossover. Lock's to do the same thing in reverse. He's sort of trying to push as long as he can on these hards, but also get to the softs as early as possible to get the most use out of them.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the other thing too, as you can see here, Murrell's trying to put a move on the lapped runner of Dane Liccardo. So a few drivers have actually gone a lap down in all of this as well. What Locke's also got to do is he's got to be able to be very careful. He probably might need to shift the brake balance a little bit further rearward in that car, because what typically happens, and this happened in the development series as well, those drivers that actually started on the hard tyre and then decided they wanted to pit part way through to go onto the soft tyre, the hard tyre performance actually started to degrade a little bit as well, it always degrades as the length of the race goes on, but it got to a particular point when you're probably about 5 laps out from a stop there or thereabouts, where it started to slide, and if you didn't adjust the balance of the car appropriately, the car wouldn't stop, the car wouldn't turn, or in Palfrey's case, for him, he's doing donuts back there. I'm not sure what's going on. I think he's just had a spin back there. But that's when you start to slide into corners, you start to understeer through corners, and the car generally doesn't like it, so you actually start to bleed. You're already bleeding a little bit of time because the tyres are getting down and they're getting a bit worn, but you actually start to then bleed further time because the car just can't cooperate, it can't turn, it can't point, it can't do whatever you need it to do. So this the next couple of laps for these hard tyre runners is going to be pretty critical. So Steve Warwick, who's running here on the yellow compound tyre as well, so too Lockie Locke, and then of course Grossel's the best of them at the moment, who's up in there in 3rd place. We're going to wait to see what these drivers all do, because I'm fully expecting in the next 2 laps we're going to see all 3 of them tour the lane. Here's Grossel as he goes across the line.
Yeah, we shouldn't be too far off now. Yeah, I was just going to confirm what happened with Palfrey. Similar sort of thing to what we saw with Ross, although quite different. Just taking the wrong line through the first chicane. Was lucky that despite the fact he was sideways while airborne, he managed to bring it down in a way that just felt in running against the wall in the reverse direction. But he did then also manage to go and get slightly lost on the right hand at the end of the staircase. And I think at that point, given he was we'd lost 30-40 seconds, I think he decided that was the point.
Yeah, he's pulled the pin as well. Daniel Cox looks like, I'm not sure if is he retired or is he in the lane here, Rhodey? I think he's
in the lane. He was one of the other hard runners, so he's probably I think he's the first of the hard runners to switch back to the soft.
Yeah, so here we go. So this is lap 20, end of lap 20 for him. So I mean, he was a lot further down the order. There actually goes your race leader in the back of the shot. So he's actually going through the picture and actually currently enjoys a nearly 11-second lead at the moment. So he's continued that march on. So the Stenberg charge, unfortunately, hasn't come up trumps here. He's just going to have to do the best to try and see if he can wait this one out and see if anything does happen to the race leader to make it through. I mean, the mathematics was there to say yes, it was possible, but the possibility, of course, means you've actually got to execute on your half. At the moment, he's doing his best, but at this stage, it looks like it will be Will Devonish that will be potentially 150 points clear with a race to go that is worth 150 points for race number 2 tonight. Grossel goes around again. I think I can see that Steve Warwick has actually. So Steve Warwick's come in, so it's a split strategy. So this is good for the BBF Renstall team, because there would have been a double stack involved here had Warwick had come in a little bit at the same lap as Grossel. So that clears that situation. Warwick's got about 12 laps now to do on the soft tyre, which is achievable. And now we just await Locke and Grossel, and then the field will be cleansed and we'll get an idea of where everybody's at. So this will move Speck up the order to 3rd place when it happens. And for Tara, he's now trying to get back down the inside of Mitchell Steele-Alison here, because remember, you got Speck, you got Tara, and you got Foley, all trying to fight for 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship. Brenton Foley's had a dead set shocker. He's down in 17th, so he's going to drop a plethora of points for this one. It's probably going to be a race in 2. There goes Grossel, so that moves these guys all up the order. Oh, big send from Tara. Tried to get down the inside there. Can get him on the switchback. Steele-Alison, no, not quite. So a little bit of contact there. So Tara doing his best to try and keep a shot at 3rd place championship live. Oh, when he had a mate, he's got it, and that's going to hurt. That will hurt for Noah Tara. He is unfortunately out of curb strikes, and he made a big mistake there. You could see the car absolutely stopped dead in its tracks as it was coming over the curb. He tried to do his best to mitigate the risk there and not get the curb strike. Unfortunately, he is going to need to tour the lane. So for Luke Speck, That is a big free kick. His two nearest rivals in the championship for third place are both going to have some adversity. Brenton Foley through the mistake on lap number 1, and now Noah Turra out of track cuts. He's going to have to tour the lane, and on top of that, he's going to have to be ultra careful between now and the end of the race.
He is, yeah. He's got the the best part of 10, 11 laps left of this race, where he's going to have to be squeaky clean through the first chicane, and the fact that he's gotten to it this early, I'd say it is still pretty early. We're not even 75% of the way through the race yet, and he's got to the limit. He's clearly been running very hard through the first chicane, clearly rolling the dice quite a bit. He's going to have a big challenge now, where he's going to be out there on those hards trying to make something out of what's left of them with whoever he pops out around. And it's going to probably be he's probably going to drop in behind.
Foley's going
the like to
Scott Murrell
over Lewis Wedding.
Yeah, no, so what's happening here is there goes Scott Murrell on the pit straight, and the next car, I think, behind him might be Dane Liccardo, who, of course, is a lap runner. So it's going to put Turra down to 6th place. He's going to be okay to come out, just behind Dane Liccardo, but in front, importantly, of Cam Rutledge. So he's got a bit of clear air, but he might be resigned to 6th place here, I think, for a finish here. He might just have to take these points and move on.
Yeah, I think the one consolation at this point in terms of positions is the car behind him in Cam Rutledge is also out there on hard tyres. Everyone behind him, actually, the next car out behind him on softs is Leonard Grossel, who is only 9 seconds away now, and 9 seconds over 8 laps is possible depending on the car pace difference. But Leonard's currently dealing with an indirect teammate of Noah in Kota Sigmanis. So the longer this fight goes up, that's that he's just about to move through at the back end of the staircase.
Yep.
This might be something he gets at the end, but he's going to almost have to rely a little bit of tyre fall off Noah.
That was a very nice move as well. Come out of turn 6 and down the inside of turn 7. We don't see it all that often, but it is a move that you can make. But as you said, you're absolutely right. That soft tyre is biting into the Adelaide streets here very, very nicely. And he's going to try and pull away here. And I was keeping an eye on him just to see how many laps were left and then what the situation was for him. I actually think he can probably get to the back of Cam Rutledge between now and the end of the race, but probably Noah Turra's might be a bit of a bridge too far, but it'll still be a very good result. He's up 7 spots as it sits right now, and I reckon he can possibly make that 8 before the end of the race, because there's Rutledge just going across the start-finish line and just disappearing down the hill toward the chicane. So the carrot is there. It is dangling, and he just sets his personal best lap on that tour, as well as passing Igmanis in the process. So had it not been for some lap traffic, he probably would have been into the high 1-minute 20s there. So 666 is on a little bit of a tear at the moment. And for Noah Turra, the next one he needs to get to is the back of Scott Murrell, and in a hurry.
Yeah, so for Leonard, he was just over a second quicker than Cam that lap, and that was while passing Igmanis. So probably take a few more tenths onto that as well. Definitely, I think, within what's the margin that's left, unless he's at risk of burning out those softs, I think he is going to catch Cam. I think, yeah, you're right. At this point, the fact that Noah's put the skates back on pretty handily and is at least holding margin, given he's out there on the used hards compared to Leonard's fresh softs. Noah's harbouring some serious pace there, but he's got a pretty much no man's lane now. It's 5 seconds to Scott Murrell, who I think in himself is trying to get maybe up towards the direction of Mitchell Steele-Allison and a Luke Speck. Yeah,
that's right. So Igmanis, I think, is probably going to lose a position to Wedding in the next couple of laps as well. So Wedding from the back of the field, 10th place is where he is at the moment. So that's a gain of 10 spots. It could be 11 if he can find a way past the number 51 Mustang here in the next few laps or so. He's got plenty of time to do it. The 51 is, I wouldn't say it's ailing a bit, but it's just because it's on the hard tyre. It just doesn't have the pace. Wedding well and truly in the into the 21s there. And then Igmanis' last lap at 22.3, so a good 6 or 7 tenths of a second there alone, spread out across the lap. So this position will probably change in the next few moments or so as well. Meanwhile, the Luke Speck charge to 3rd place in the championship. He's actually starting to pull away a little bit from Steele-Allison here. I think actually had to pass Zach Brown in the last few moments or so. Yep, just in the back of shot there. There they are. So he's managed to get past him, which is some lap traffic. And a little bit leery there, and that opened up the door for Brown to have a look down the inside. He was actually trying to unlap himself. I think he might be actually on the soft tyre as well. or on a much fresher set of soft tyres, because he actually unlapped himself pretty easily there.
Yeah, so Zach is on fresh softs. He's had to, I think he's had to pit and possibly go out of kilter. And actually, no, that's what it was. Zach was the one we saw dive in very, very early. So I think what he's done was started on the softs, gone to the hards, and then come back to the softs at the end. Perhaps was hoping for a safety car somewhere in there that he could make something work, but maybe, I think maybe the intent was strategy-wise, maybe he wanted to start on the hards and kind of just tried to make the best out of this race that he could. But yeah, at the end of the day, he's got some really good pace here. His next car to chase down is Brennan Dostal, who's out there on hard tyres. That's a 10-second gap though, but I don't know. It depends on how the next laps come through. But yes, really good turn pace out of Zach. He's able to pass and pull away from Steele Allison. The next car he's going to catch on track, and he is already within visual range, is Luke Speck.
Absolutely. The other man who pitted late there in the piece as well, so a couple of drivers that pitted late there, Lockie Lock and Steve Warwick, they're running 11th and 12th at the moment. They were sort of hoping to try and catch the back of Lewis Wedding and see if the soft tyre advantage that they would get them would give them a bit more of a benefit, but it's they've come out a little bit too far behind. I mean, Lock's last lap was a little bit quicker than Wedding, 0.3 of a second quicker, but the problem for him is look at that timing totem. He's nearly 13 seconds behind the number 85 at the moment. So it hasn't quite worked out starting on that hard tyre and then trying to charge through the field and then get onto the softer tyre there. Good idea though, but hasn't paid dividends in this one. So he has moved up from the rear of the field though. So a few drivers have come forward, so they'll have some good starting positions for the next race or the final race of the year. On top of that, they'll have some pretty interesting strategy calls to make from those positions, I think, as well, Rody, because it is a free tyre choice of starting compound for the last race of the night. The requirement to start on the same tyre compound you qualified on only applies to race number 1. The lock across the line there, and a couple of tenths away from his best. So actually been a pretty consistent night for him. I think he's just found that rhythm that he's quite happy with, and not overly pushing the car too hard, but for him, a relatively mistake-free night so far for the 237, having missed qualifying, and blaming it on the daylight saving, other than Michael Jackson, who blamed it on Boogie.
I will defend the indefensible there with Lockie Lock. He actually wasn't present at all for Bathurst, so it isn't wholly unreasonable that the race being an hour earlier was a surprise to him, given he didn't actually make any appearance whatsoever for the last round at all. Known that was happening. But to finish up the story on a couple of the passes we were watching, although I think you've just seen something.
Yeah, I've just seen something going on with Darryl Callaghan. I'm wondering if he's got some pretty decent damage on the front right corner of the car. I think it's actually gone flat. I think he's hit the wall somewhere because he was just lumbering along in the number 6 quite slowly here and just emitted a whole bunch of smoke as he hit the anchors. And I've got a funny feeling it's a front right puncher for him, and he's just trying to crawl that car back to the pits. So been a bit of a tale of woe for a few drivers today, as the race leader's coming through to lap him here, and gets out of the way at a pretty appropriate time. Yeah, you can see the big plume of smoke there coming from the front right. So he'll get in the lane and he'll get that replaced and get back out, but that's going to mean he is the last classified runner as it stands right now.
Yeah, actually, just unfortunate as well. I did actually see maybe part of that accident. He'd gotten the puncture more than a lap prior, but he hadn't noticed it until he turned right to come into the last couple of corners and noticed the car wasn't doing what it's supposed to. Crucially, the speed was coming in here, meant he missed pit lane entry and had to go around a whole another lap for he to get back in to fix that tyre puncture. But the other point I was going to lean into is a couple of the battles we were talking about earlier. So we talked about Wedding versus Egmanus. Well, that actually basically...
That's been resolved.
That was resolved very quickly in that Wedding got within, I wouldn't say within sight of Egmanus, but he was still half a second back or so. Egmanus went well deep at the hairpin and just generally seems to be struggling a little bit for pace at this point. So Wedding's able to march straight on through. Actually, he's got Dane Liccardo to race with, even though they're a lap different.
This was the other battle
we were talking about was Leonard Grossel, who has now moved on and is checked on through past Cam Rutledge.
Oh, he's more than checked through, he's checked out. In fact, he's actually got a couple of seconds over Cam here, but that's just the big disparity between the soft tyre and the hard tyre, isn't it? So for Grossel, that gets him up to 8th, up 8 spots to P7, so that's a very handy result for him. And to think he's actually only 4 seconds off the back of Noah Tara as well. Tara plodding along doing 1 minute 21.5s, and Grossel's doing 1 minute 20s or high 1 minute 20s. So if only that had come a little bit earlier in the piece, and it may have actually been able to grab a few extra spots. But of course, Tara having to steward the lane. As I said to you, I think he's just going to have to sit there and take those points that come with 6th place, because he's not making any inroads in Scott Murrell, who's not doing him any favours either. There's a good 5-second gap between the two of them at the moment. Well, actually, it's more closer to 6.5.
Yeah, I think he's in a good state. I think what's going to prove as well for some of these guys, I did see yellow pop up at the last point.
Callaghan. Yeah, Daryl Callaghan, I think he'll just sort of run a little bit wide, yeah.
Actually, no, Foley's into the lane. Actually,
oh, there we go.
Which does answer that question, because Foley did swap off of... No, Foley did commit to running the hards after he got his puncture. So he is very late in the picture. But basically, I think he could almost probably get to the end of the race on hards. He probably wanted to make sure he swapped the softs to avoid a DQ for tire infraction. Just had one to...
Yeah, no, but he did the one. Yeah, he must have done the one lap on what? He started at the back on the hard tyre.
No, he started on hards, came back out on hards. So this is the first time he's actually been on softs since all race.
Yeah, so that's right. So yes, he was disqualified for at the Gold Coast for failure to adhere to tyre compound rules. So he is now. It was funny because I reminded him in the driver's briefing about making sure that was where he's like, yes, I'm aware, Gold Coast. I've been reminded. So he was quite aware of it. Just under 3 kilometres to go for Will Devonish to take the race victory here. And, well, he had the margin out to nearly 13 seconds at one point, but he's gone back into the 1 minute 20s here, and Stenberg in the 1 minute 21. So I guess he's just managing the pace here now. He's had a couple of slow laps on the previous couple of tours. But, well, it was one of those things we looked at after the Bathurst round, and when he tried to get in and then the power went out, in the area where he lives, and he couldn't race. It shocked everybody. We weren't 100%. We weren't quite sure what to make of it. We weren't. It set up the fact that it was going to be a pretty interesting championship finale. It may have very well gone down to the final race of the year. But as it stands, it will be a race to spare for Will Devonish for 2025. He'll come to the line. He will be 150 points clear with 150 remaining on the table and a wins tiebreaker over Devonish. And as I say in the classics, that'll do, Will. That'll do.
Yeah, so it does delay us. It does remove the opportunity for this final race to come down, or for the final race to be a deciding race. But what it does mean is it will take the shackles off of both Will Devonish and Kurt Stenberg to run the final race in whichever way they see fit. So Kurt Stenberg home in second, another podium for him this year. It does mean he is going to come up just short, even with a magical inversion of points. He's still going to lose on tiebreaker, but a great run by Kurt to attempt to defend a title, especially when he wasn't aiming to defend the title at all this year.
That's it.
Speck home in third, really good run for
That's
Speck.
That is the most important podium of the year, I think, for Luke Speck, because that will help him very much in the battle for third place in the championship. Mitchell Steele-Allison home in fourth, Scott Murrell in fifth, and the reason I said it's Speck's most important podium is because he had this man, Noah Tara, right under his rear wing for a good chunk of that race, and then going through the centre chicane and getting that curb strike sensor going off has given him a little bit of breathing room, along with the demise of Brenton Foley. So we'll do some oops, Noah, that's not what you're supposed to do. I was warning everybody about that wall earlier in the night, and he's just gone and bitten it. We'll do the points on the other side of this. Leonard Grossel in seventh, so eighth place is gained for him. That's a very strong result. Cam Rutledge down one into eighth. That's still a very respectable finish for him. Lewis Wedding, biggest mover of the race, up 11 spots from the rear of the grid. Great job for him, a ninth place finish, and Igmanis there in 10th. Lockie Lock, he moved up 8 as well, so like Leonard Grossel, up 8 spots from the rear. So a couple of drivers now going to have some interesting choices to make in terms of decisions for what tyre they start on in race number 2. 5 spots for Steve Warwick, he'll be very pleased with that. Brandon Dostal 13th, and then Brown 14th. Cox, Liccardo and Foley, and then Callaghan, the last of the classified finishers, with Palfrey and Ross, the the non-finishers in that one. Well, that takes, as you said, Rhodey, it takes the pressures now off. It takes the shackles, I guess, can effectively be released, but we'll still got to bring it home. Sans a DNF, I think, is what it is more importantly. Sans a DNF, or a disqualification. Sans a disqualification, not a DNF. Sans disqualification for Will Devonish in race number 2. It is officially sewn up. So he's the champion-elect for 2025, and we will wait to see what happens on the other side of race number 2, coming up in a few moments' time. So
absolutely. I was just having a look at the points. It's still going to require something funny not funny, haha, funny, weird in race 2. But given the 17th place finish for Foley, which is a whole 54 points, he's at a real possibility of this becoming his drop round.
Yeah, well, that's a very important thing. So that's something we will not have the answer to until the end of the night. So we'll have to wait and figure that one out. So as it stands right now, I guess the incumbent Luke Speck is the one that's in 3rd place in the championship. So Speck already had a drop round, as you said there, of 135 points on the board, and Brenton Foley's was 144. But depending on what happens to Foley in the next race, even he would have to finish. I'm just doing the math here. I think he would have to finish about 9th or 10th, I think it is, just to work out what those points actually are. So 96 and 54, that gets to 150. So he would have to finish 8th or 8th or lower, and if it's 8th, he would equal his drop round. If it was 9th, he would actually drop this round. Adelaide would be his drop round, and then he would actually get 144 points back on the table, but he would actually only make about 6 or 7 points in the overall scheme of things. So that's just those permutations there. But for Speck, it would actually probably be enough anyway, because he's now moved the better part of 138 points clear. If my math is correct, I'm just trying to work that out in my head as I go along. So we'll see what happens there. But as I said, that actually did quite a service for Speck in that race. Solid run to 3rd place, and the Foley incident was, I guess, Foley of his own doing, just sort of outbraking himself and not realising where his car was positioned relative to Liccardo. And then the Noah Turra one, that's definitely given him a free kick. Turra, incidentally, has actually climbed over the top of Brenton Foley for 4th place, so he's actually the next best challenger to Luke Speck. Now he's just under 120 points behind, so he's got to keep the pressure up, but that's going to it'll be an interesting finish that way. But at this stage, Luke Speck is looking likely ready to be the one that will walk away with 3rd place in the championship, but he's got to get home first in this next race.
He does, and the maths are favouring Specky in this instance as well, but he is also, as I'm just trying to make sure I've got all the corrected fill-in drivers on the team standings, he is now out there running solo, trying to protect against funnily, the way things have turned out, assistance from a former substitute fill-in driver teammate, whatever you want to call it, being that Scott Murrell's driven for both ASR Shogun and Luke McHugh Racing. But the gap is currently 261 points, which I think at this point, short of a really bad outcome for Specky, is out of the question. Specky's going to have 5th covered in the team standings. The interesting thing that's actually going to come out of this race, and again, it's potential. Basically, unless it's a really bad finish, I think even then, as long as Foley and Ross can both finish this race, they will hold Specky off for 4th in the team standings. But if they don't, Specky is within range. The gap is only 19 points.
Ooh, yeah, so that's actually...
But it's one driver against 2.
That's right. So, that's the important thing. Like, Speck's got to finish ahead of the two drivers we're talking about for a start. But then he's got to hope that there's some results go his way. And then it would be the single driver teams, Roddy, for a long time in ASR, they've always had one hand tied behind their back, so to speak, when it comes to to these sorts of scenarios. But we've seen Kurt Stenberg, be top 5 in the championship in team standings. Of course, on the years that he's actually won the title in the drivers' title race. So it's one of those sorts of it's one of those interesting scenarios. It's a very, very effectively. Speck's really done most of the heavy lifting this year on his own. He's had a little bit of help from Luke Newing along the way, but Newing hasn't been able to make every single round. So a lot of the heavy lifting, the bulk of the points have come from Speck in that team's race.
It has, yeah. One thing I will actually give him, I was just checking how Lewis is going now that he's actually scoring points for his own team as opposed to his guest drivers earlier in the year. I did answer the question almost for myself. Almost after we had the discussion on why Lewis ran the number of years. It's not anything specific to him. I don't believe it is anyway. It's entirely down to the sponsor. The very first Adelaide F1 Grand Prix was 1985.
85, there you go, yep.
But that'd be why.
I knew there would be a reason. So that completely makes the reason understandable. And yes, you're absolutely right. The 1985 Adelaide Formula 1 Grand Prix was the very first of the Adelaide races, and then of course it only went on for the better part of a decade, and then it ended up in the hands of Melbourne. The last couple of races there, obviously 94 and 95 on the streets of Adelaide, and then the 19 in the mid to late 90s it ended up in Melbourne. And of course, there's been plenty of interesting moments in the history of both the Adelaide and Melbourne Formula 1 Grand Prix. So. Good luck to Oscar Piastri, by the way, in the next 4 rounds of the Formula 1 World Championship. Of course, we're recording this on the night before they get underway for the Brazilian Grand Prix, the conclusion to the championship. So just waiting on 1 or 2 drivers to jump back in for tonight's proceedings. Not sure if we're going to get them all here, but a few drivers are just spending some time, as they said, going out. Maybe they're trying a couple of different things, a few race starts and some things like that, but just a few drivers, not the whole entire field like there normally is in the warm-up before race 1. A few drivers have probably opted to go the loo and get themselves all sorted out and ready to go for the next one, rather than invest the time in going out onto the circuit. But I think in the case of Nawatari, he'll probably want to get out there and try and double check his line through the opening chicane once or twice, maybe even 3 times, just to make sure he's actually going to be able to get through it ready. Yeah,
I think if we have some time waiting for him to come back, I might join them and also get a refresh of water because I'm running low. But I can, just to fill in the other story from before, a little bit more info on what is happening with CRE Anson. Coxey's time availability is looking like he's most likely to become the CRE super sub for next year. Whereas Cam, and it's a story of which the broad strokes I think a lot of the elder statesmen in ASR can associate with, he's having the fun, and I'm not meaning this in a negative way towards his wife Jen, he's having the fun of balancing sim racing and family life. Yes. And basically he's it's probably not unlike an actual racing contract negotiation. He's got to find enough time that makes everything happy. At this point, I think there's some interest for Cam, depending also on whether Maitland goes next year. He is someone who has done a little bit of Dev Series driving in recent years. He has been on the bubble. He is someone that might perhaps look at spending a year in Dev Series to still get a competitive run in while still keeping the wife on side. And we're still waiting for Leonard Grossel to get back in.
Yes, we are indeed. Still waiting for Leonard Grossel to jump back in. So we might have a little short pause here while we wait for that. But yes, I can understand what you're saying about the likes of Cam Rutledge and having to do all that sort of balance that goes along with being a dad and being a parent, and in his case as well, not just being employed, but running a business as well, because of course CRE Electrical have been great sponsors of ASR for a number of years now. And I know a number of drivers have said that it's one of the reasons why I've sort of opted to to step away, I guess, in a full-time capacity this year, because juggling those sorts of demands can be quite quite difficult at times. And this year was the first year that I'd actually missed a broadcast in 7 seasons. So it's just one of those things that was inevitably going to happen at some point. And when it happens, you're sort of like, you've spent most of your life running through doing these sorts of things, and giving back to because of the enjoyment of actually doing it. And some drivers do genuinely appreciate that. Some drivers probably can't truly understand the amount of effort that actually goes through one's mind. Why they keep doing these sorts of things over and over and over again, but it is the way that it has come to be over the years. So it will be something that I've grappled with for a number of years now. There's been a few times where it's been a bit of a challenge. I'll probably reflect a bit more on this after the racing's over tonight, and just give everybody a little bit of an insight as to what's actually happened. But yes, you're right. At the moment, we are waiting for one Leonard Grossel, and I think, Brady, you might be trying to see whether or not he is actually trying to make it back in, because I'm not seeing any sort of activity that indicates the otherwise.
Yeah, I haven't heard directly from Leonard, but I've heard from one of the Brenton Foley's in the chat, and there were at 1.9 of them. So they picked up on the trend of Foley and then Lewis being Brenton Foley too. To get to the meat and bones of it, life and things, I believe it's what's happening for Leonard, which would make sense because we are racing Friday morning his time, and he might have just been had the morning intrinsic upon his ability to race.
That's right. Well, it looks like at this stage, from what we've been told, he may not be back for this final race. So that means we end up with 19 runners, and we're about to get back underway for race 23 of the 2025 ASR Supercars Championship. So that means all our drivers line up on the grid, and we get ready to go again one last time for another 100 kilometres in the ASR Supercars Championship this year. So just ticking down the timer at the moment. So just waiting on Lewis Wedding. He's the only one. He's then just in that vacant grid spot that's just in there behind Noah Tara. There he is. He's arrived. And good to see that Brandon Dostal has made the start for this one. So for the last time in season 2025, this is your starting grid for the final race of the 2025 ASR Supercars Championship. Will Devonish, the champion-elect, currently sits 150 points clear at the top of the standings with just this race to go and 150 points on offer. So just needs to bring this one home, and that will be that. Kurt Stenberg gave a good chase in the championship and is starting out of P2. Luke Speck in P3. He needs a strong result in this one to make sure he hangs on to P3 in the championship, because he is being chased down by 2 drivers that are doing their best to try and make life difficult for him. Mitchell Steele-Allison, he's not in that fight for 3rd place in the championship, but he is a little bit of a thorn in the side of those drivers that are trying to make it for him. Scott Murrell in 5th in the Damon McDonald entry. Noah Tara is really the one that can probably throw down the biggest challenge to Luke Speck in this one for P3 in this final standings. He starts out 6th. Cam Rutledge in the Craig Lowndes Tribute livery starting in position 7. Lewis Wedding in 8th place after a strong run from the back of the grid in race number 1. Curtis Igmana starts 9th, and Lockie Lock starts in 10th place. Again, another driver that started off the back of the grid. Steve Warwick made some nice progress as well. He starts out at P11, ahead of Brandon Dostal, the Liberty Racing number 76. Zach Brown, who pitted a little bit early in the first race, he starts 13th, with Daniel Cox right alongside him in 14th. Dane Liccardo, 15th, and one that's going to be looking to try and move his way back through the field after the starting opening lap incident in race number 1. Along with Brenton Foley, same scenario for them. They're going to have to fight their way back. Darryl Callaghan starting in 17th. Jacob Palfrey in 18th. And off the back of the grid, Brendan Ross in 19th place. Supercars all pulling up to the grids here. Just want to make sure they're as far forward as they possibly can be in those grid boxes. Whoop, Brendan Ross is the only one who had a bit of a moment there. I think he must have done a little donut or something at the end there, but he's back on the grid. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's not always about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog. And away we go for the final race of the ASR Supercars Championship in 2025. And this time, Will Devonish launches wonderfully off the start line, but then again, we don't know what tyres everybody are on just yet. I can hear Rody furiously typing in the background to try and note who was on what tyre. That probably is a bit of a giveaway as to what's just happened at the start there, because Devonish has marched on and gotten on with it pretty quickly after a really pretty decent launch, and Stenberg's under siege here from Noah Turra. Has still hasn't gone the way down, and that's the reason why, because he's starting on the yellow sidewall tyre, Rody.
Yep, yeah, so of the top 10, there were only a few out there on the hard tyres. Kurt Stenberg, Liz Wedding, and Termo, and Lockie Lock, actually, I think the lead runners of those on the hard tyre. The only other one I've noticed so far was Steve Warwick, who actually did get turned around in a bit of a kerfuffle, probably partially resulted in the fact.
Oh, and some contact!
And
some contact, Rody, sorry to cut you off there. Bit of contact involving Noah Turra. I'm not sure what's gone on there, but he's stranded from it. I think he's just waiting on the field to go past. And there was a bit of three-way contact going into turn number 9. We didn't quite get the best look at that one. There was just to see who was moving around in the zone and everything there as they all tried to angle for that corner. The upshot is Stenberg and Murrell went through, and Noah Turra plummets down the order to 17th. So let's get the juice as to what's happened here. So they come through turn number 8. Turra was in front of Stenberg, and I think it was Stenberg trying to have a bit of a look there at the inside, and Murrell, I reckon Murrell may potentially have just maybe given Stenberg a little bit of a shove there into Turra. Hard to tell from that angle. Wind it back a little bit and just have another look at it. Just have a look at Stenberg's car, because he's actually there or there, and then all of a sudden, yeah, I reckon he's got a little bit of a nose from Murrell, and that's what's upset him into the car 26. So not the best start there for Turra. He was the one who was closest to Luke Speck in the championship standings, and the man in third place just might have got the mother of all free kicks.
Yeah, it's funny how those things play out as you. Oh, it's just another dive. I think
and that's Wedding. Yeah, well, Wedding's gone off at turn.
Wedding, yeah.
Wedding's gone off at turn 9 as well. So again, a lot of smoke and a lot of clouds and a lot of other things going on there as we were just sort of coming back from the replay. Wedding's off at turn number 9. So I'll tell you what, a lot of cards being left on the table here in race number 2. And some old sparring partners maybe got together here. Well, we're about to find out. So I'll tell you what, this is not going to go down well if that's the case. Oh, they were all covering each other, and well, what happened there? Oh, and he just ran a little bit deep. So, yep, Liccardo was trying to put the pressure on, I think, there. I'm not sure if there's a slightly different tyre between the two of them there, but Liccardo looked like he had a lot more pace, and I think maybe just in the haste of covering things off there, maybe I'm not sure if there was a little bit of contact or what happened there, but whatever happened, it ended up with Wedding going down the escape road at turn 9.
Yeah, I'm just quickly checking. That was the one car I had missing. All right, I have now got everyone's tyres. So they have changed things up as between races 1 and 2. Generally, it seems the people that had a beneficial result from starting on the hard stuck with it. So, well, actually, I say that. Well, actually, the one I would have loved to know is Leonard Grossel, but he's not here. I was about to make a point about him, but he's actually not here to make. I think he would have stayed with the hards given his run. But Steve Warwick is stuck with the hards. Rossi is stuck with the hards. Kurt is, as I mentioned, one of the few and only one of the top 4 or 5 cars that's starting on the hards, which explains why he's starting to slip down the field. But the interesting thing as well from the other end of it is the guys that, despite the hards maybe being the best strategy, they got burnt in one way or another in the first race and decided, nope, I just want to get through the field, I want to get as far away from anyone else as possible. Those being the 2 cars running currently Linus Stone in 8th and 9th, and Brendan Foley and Dan Liccardo, who both suffered as a result of contact with each other that gave them both punctures and forced them both to run alternate strategies. I think they decided, look, it might, to go with the point I made about my experience here in the past, they might have decided the hards are a faster car, but the softs get me out of the way of everyone else. They get me to a point in the race where I can enjoy the driving and where I might not have to worry about freaking out the cars around me so much, which is probably where they're at. So they're going to probably find themselves slipping back through the field as the race plays on, as we see on the hard tide later. But for now, they're in a really good stead there, although that said, Dane's a little wide to turn out more and so enough around Dossel.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. So Dossel can't, he gets down the inside there. We're actually on board with Liccardo as he went into turn number 8. Yes, the car completely understeered through the corner and had to wipe some speed off. That allowed number 10 to get down the inside there. We've got the recovering Noah Tara trying to catch up to the back of this little group as well as they run through the bottom part of the Adelaide Parkland circuit down to the final corner and then back onto the main straight. Foley actually really putting it on the table here, going super aggressive, trying to get past Locke here. He's actually going to have to just concede here a little bit and maybe take the bit more appropriate line, and that's the reason why, because Locke was on the narrow line there, so he's unfortunately been compromised there. But then for Foley's sake, he nearly loses a spot. In fact, he might lose a spot to Brandon Dostal here as all things are said and done, but no, he's now in a position to hold here. Oh, late dive up the inside from Foley, and then Locke has to give him a little bit of space here. This is a super angry little train here, and what's going to resolve out the other side of turn number 7? Can they get through unscathed? No, they can't. Foley has to ride the wall. That
and Dostal's carrying speed over the cars in front of him actually probably really helped Locke there, because he punched Locke through and pushed him back ahead of Foley. But what it matters is all front of rig contact. Foley's, I'm surprised he didn't get up anything worse from that from Dostal's end. But yeah, Locke's the only one of this train, very obviously on the the hard tyre. Everybody else is on softs, which makes sense given the absolute energy in this train. At this point, it goes right the way back to Egmanus in 13, but all stuck behind Locke.
Yeah, this is a super thing. Oh, and Brown in the wall. Brown, I'm not sure if he was fed into the wall, but Brown was in the wall hard at turn number 11. So he is he's given that quite the whacking. And I'm not sure if he's been able to continue on. I don't think he has. I think he might be done. Nope, and indeed he is. He is done.
Yeah, so probably at least a puncture there, if not something else. But we're just struggling to get the car going again.
I actually think it was a little bit worse than that. We might actually see if we can catch that on a replay here. I think there might have been a little bit of some side-to-side contact going on there as they came down into... We saw there was a bit of contact as they went down into the hairpin. With a few drivers, and as you can see here, down into turn number 9 and 10 and 11, and yep, a little bit of side-to-side contact between the two of them. Yeah, in the fence hard. Oh, and he got finished off by Egmanus for good measure, so yeah, that would have been the edge. Well, what a bruising opening start. Actual fact, the car actually got going. I can actually see it. I think he elected to give up at that point. So I just watched it for a little bit extra longer just to confirm what's going on there. And that's what's happened. So, as you said, Rody, a lot of energy in this little group. Foley has now found his way to the lead of that group. So I think for his sake, that's what he wanted to do, because then he can try and, get out after the next place car, which Cam Rutledge. Oh, Tara's gone around in all of that as well. Now, again, is that on his own? Or was that assisted? So we just to get the back of the shot there. Lots of things going on left, right and centre here. A lot of drivers leaving a lot of things on the table here. Dostal now trying to have a go at Liccardo. And does he basically trying to pull the Foley trick here and sort of compromise Dane when it came to running down the narrow approach into turn number 1. But he can't get that job done, and he has to just stay put for the moment just to see what happened to Tara there. I think he actually got a bit of assistance from Dostal as well too. So fully expecting that the stewards are going to have their hands busy after this one is over. So there might be a few changes in the order with regards to the points that we probably won't know for another week. I believe the stewarding committee is going to meet a bit later on this week to understand actually early next week to sort all those out and finalise it all, as Dostal finally might get this move done here on Liccardo at turn 9, and he does. He's now going to be able to hold it going through turn 9 and now on to 10 and 11, and this time he does. So a bit of luck. He's been, oh no, not quite. Bill, I've put the words in someone's mouth a bit too briefly there. Liccardo sweeps back around the outside and gets it back as Dostal gets a bit tail happy coming out of turn number 11. And, well, Brendan Ross has now managed to catch back up to this group, as has Daryl Callaghan. So the more that these two at the front at this little group fight here, they're just coughing up time, hand over fist, to all these cars behind that are then playing catch up.
Yeah, actually, I've just noticed as well. We just lost Luke Speck from this race. It was a
Oh,
yellow
dear.
in the first sector, in the first chicane complex. So I imagine something tied to that.
Well, in actual fact, for Luke Speck, that's actually something that's probably it's actually probably not a bad result for him, I would say, because I think, Brady, you might have to do the math here and just work out what that does for his drop round in terms of the points scenario, because he's not going to gain any further points from this one. But what does that do in terms of where he finishes in the championship, and what does that mean for Noah Turra, more importantly?
I think by margins of only about 4 points, I think this becomes his drop round, but he only, as a net result, gains 4 points from the process.
Yeah, so he gains 4 points from the process, but for Noah Turra, what does that mean? I mean, he's currently sitting in 4th place overall at the moment. I mean, if we try and do a little bit of math here just to try and work it out, he actually needs a 4th place finish, I think, or maybe I think that's probably at the best. Yeah, he does. He needs Noah Turra can snatch 3rd place in the championship with a 4th place finish. Right now, he's 15th. That's the problem for Noah Turra. He's unfortunately been caught up in 2 incidents, one of which was not his fault, where he was turned around by another car, and then the other one, which of course resulted in the contact, which we think is actually an indirect driver that's been in that team a few times this year, having nerfed another driver into him. So both situations I don't think were his fault, but unfortunately now not in a position to capitalise. In fact, has now gone down to 17th. I think he's had a very sluggish lap. It's 1 minute 49 on the last tour, so I'm wondering has he come in the lane?
He's been through the lane. He's just been through the lane.
There we go. So he's been through the lane, so going for a very early swap to hard tyres, I think.
Yes, yeah, he has jumped on the hards now. So that's about as early as I think we saw from the earliest of the pitters in race 1. But I don't exactly remember who that was and how their race eventuated from there. We do know that Noah's got the pace to do something with this, but between pitting when he did and the fact that he unfortunately was kind of caught out by... I almost want to say it was like reverse grid levels of energy in the mid-pack, which I suppose last race of the year school's out trying to have a bit of fun for the next 3 months. But yeah, unfortunately he kind of was it's the unfortunate thing when you get into situations where if you're the polite person, you tend to get picked on. I think that's just kind of the way it's turned out. Which is Palfrey, I'm going to say he's had a really good race to pick up drive-throughs. I believe that was for track limits, so that's a really good start for Palfrey. He's going to have a long road to go from here.
No, that's right.
But yeah, that's unfortunately for Turra. He's got a bit of work to do. He's going to be one that, look, the energy from this grid, not that I haven't tried already, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a safety car this race.
No, I wouldn't. Well, the man on screen, he could potentially snatch 3rd place in the standings from Luke Speck, but he needs a win. That's the only thing going for him, and right now I don't see that happening, as you said, Brody, unless a safety car comes out and it really jumbles the field.
Yeah, so so Turra's got a bit of work to do. And the other thing that sort of swings back into this as well, potentially not, is also what this does for Foley. He's still at a point where he's going to make some big bank in this race to even make this a round worth scoring points off of, i.e. not his drop round. But yeah, there's still some stuff to shake out with this. Foley is in a good position to try and do his best, even if his argument now is really more of a team standing than a driver's standings. He's out there in 5th currently, and as with Blocky Block powering through, and sort of is the best of the rest of the group. Actually, I suppose Rutledge actually the best of the rest of the group, which, side note, he's up 3 spots, but still, Rutledge running around in 4th currently, behind Devonish, behind Seal Allison, behind Stenberg. Granted, Noah Turra's had his happenings, but Morrell's also down the field now as well. I believe Murrell has pitted.
Yes.
Really good running for Rutledge in this early stage.
Yeah, well, on top of that, there's a lot of early stoppers now as well. So drivers coming in on lap 10 and 11 to discard some of the soft tyres and get onto the harder tyres. So Licardo's been through the lanes. So too, as I think we saw, was Daniel Cox and Scott Murrell. You mentioned has been in there as well. I think it was the other one you said there was Noah Tara. He's already been in after being battered from pillar to post. He's decided to come in and make something happen. And he's actually found his way up to 14th as a result of some of these drivers coming in and taking those bits of service. Oh, and there's that safety car you were on about, Rhodey. You were waiting, saying you were going to be surprised if there was one. And there is one. So, well, enlighten us. What has happened that's triggered this safety car? It can't be Zach Brown and it can't be Luke Speck, so it's got to be someone that's running around.
There was a 3-car kerfuffle between Daryl Callahan, Brendan Ross, and Curtis Igmanis, with the latter ending up sideways in the wall on the exit of turn 8.
Well, there you
turn
go.
9, sorry.
Yep, no, I think we're honing in on that little scenario right about now. So this will scramble the order for a few drivers. Let's actually get this one on the replay. We have got it for you to see what happened here. So you can see here as they come through the shot. So there's Igmanis, and he's just tailing these guys. Oh yeah, so you can see there. So Ross and Callaghan were getting a little bit interested here, and then down wide a bit here, and then down the inside, all wedding into the back of Igmanis, and that's what's triggered the safety car. So
well, it's come at an interesting time. I think for those who started on the softs, which if I go back to my list of drivers just to rail them out, that's the likes of Will Devonish, Luke Speck, who's obviously out of this race, Mitchell Steele-Allison, Scott Murrell, Noah Tara, who has already pitted, Cam Rutledge, Jacob Palfrey, who is still in this race, Daryl Callahan, Zach Brown, who's out of this race, Dane Liccardo, Brendan Foley, Brandon Dostal. If they haven't already, now is a really good time for them to pit, to jump on those hard tyres.
Yep.
Those who started on the hards, I don't think this does much for them. Short of trying something different, trying to still make this a one-stop race, and pit about the same time as the guys you're racing against. But I don't know, maybe you jump on some softs. I don't know. I don't think there's really any way as a hard tyre runner that wants to continue on the hard tyres that you make any bigger advantage out of this outside of just staying on the road and picking up positions for those that pit.
Well, what you've got to do, importantly, is the drivers that have just gone past the safety car because they've been permitted to do so, they can't pit. Well, in Lewis Wedding's case, this is going to be a bit of a problem. I think he realised it. And I think he just realised that, and he's cut across the chevron there because he knows that you can't really, once you've been given, you won't get that back. And he'll be caught behind the safety car yet again, and then he won't be able to go past. So he needs to go back around. He needs to pick up get back on the back of the train, and then try and come in for his stop. I know what he was trying to do there. He was trying to get the stop and everything all done, but unfortunately he would have fallen behind and wouldn't have been able to get past again.
Yeah, so the problem with the train for him is the train was basically following him up to... actually, the train hasn't actually caught the safety car.
No, it hasn't.
Yet. They are catching it now, but the safety car is crossing the start-finish line. The train is about to follow it over. The train being Will Devonish in the lead. It's in a bit of a collision of cars under safety car.
Yep.
Will Devonish in the lead. Scott Murrell trapped behind him one lap down, so that's really unfortunate for Scott. Second, Steele-Allison. Third, Lockie Lock. Fourth, Stenberg. Yeah,
that's right. Well, for Stenberg, like being the hard tyre runner here as well, when he started on the hard tyre, you're right, this doesn't do anything really for him. Has he actually been in and taken the service under the safety car, or is he actually still out there on those hard tyres?
No, Stenberg has swapped to the soft.
Yes, he has.
Which is a choice. I'm not fully across how long a soft tyre is going to last, and given he dove in pretty early in race 1, if that was forced hand play, I'm almost expecting Kurt to hit again, which maybe leads me to believe that Kurt is weighing up the chance of a second safety car to be probable. Because either that or it's some secret sources to make these tyres last about 15 laps once we get to racing speed.
Lucky dog for Daniel Cox as
well.
Lucky
dog for Daniel Cox to swing on through.
Yep. Now so the only person that's not going to get their lap back here is Scott Murrell, because he's actually trapped behind the race leader. So that actually hasn't worked out well for him. He was one of the early stoppers, and unfortunately he is going to be stuck exactly where he is and obligated by the blue flags to give way to everybody that is behind him.
Yeah, okay, so just quickly, I'll go through the tyres for what it matters. So Will Devonish started on the softs, currently on the hards. Mitchell Steele Allison started on the softs, currently on the hards. Lockie Lock started on the hards, still on the hards, still has to pit. Kurt Stenberg started on the hards, now on the softs. Brenton Ross up in 5th, started on the hards, still on the hards, still needs to pit. Cam Rutledge started on softs, has pitted for hards. Curtis McManus started on the hards, still on the hards, still needs to pit. Dostal started on the softs, has pitted for hards. Noah Turra started on the hards, has pitted, but I believe stayed on hards. Has pitted from softs, has pitted onto hards. And of the 10, Darryl Callahan started on softs and is currently on hard tyres.
Yep. So that then is an interesting scenario because that safety car has actually played out relatively well for Noah Turra. It's actually managed to get him back inside the top 10, and I think when the safety car goes in here, he will fancy his chances of being able to get up to, I think, what did we say it was, Ray? I think it said it was about 4th place, I think it was, that he had to target to be able to get over the top of Luke Speck potentially here. Being down there in the order, so 3rd place he needed to get to. He needed a podium finish to be able to make that work, to get over the top of, potentially get over the top of Luke Speck here. So if he gets a 3rd place finish, it gives him 2,186 points with the drop round already gone, and with Speck about to inherit potentially the 4 or 5 points, he'd be about 3 or 4 points clear. So that's the simple logic for Turra. I actually think he'll probably fancy his chances from here.
Yeah, the interesting, so from here, in terms of driving, he's going to get up through, and he is on, I suppose what matters here, he is running out, he is out there on his hards right now, so he's probably good to end the race. Cars he's got to worry about is Dostal, who's shown pace but not consistency so far this race. Igmanus, who's a teammate, when he's going to make it too difficult. Rutledge, same thing, but he hasn't been a really good run. I don't think he's going to want to step out of the way entirely.
No.
Ross has no horse in this fight. Stenberg is doing his own thing. But somewhere in this train as well, I can't remember. No, it was Ross actually, I thought that was Foley. Ross might actually try and assist Foley in some way and make it a bit harder. But the way things are looking, I think, with what's left to go in this race, he's looking pretty good. I think we're about to get going.
No, one more.
Not one more lap.
No, usually the call's going to be sort of around about turn 9, be where the drivers will need to start checking up and getting control of the field before they start to get ready to go again here. I think we had one safety car in the development series race a week ago, and that came out sort of in the second race as well. So everybody was sort of trying to was it the first race or was it the second race? I can't remember which one it was, but there was a lot of I think it was the first race actually. There was a lot of second guessing as to
yes, it was the first race. Yeah,
because it was after most of the stops had taken place, and a number of drivers opted to potentially stop again, and a few of them got trapped a lap down as a result of where the safety car came out. Yes, Radio, I know that's a sore point.
Yes.
But it's it is the nature of some of these things, and especially around a circuit like this, you've got to be able to balance when you not only what you're doing when you're coming in, but you've also got to be. It's a hard call to make sometimes because you need to have your map up. You need to know where the race leader is, and then you've also got to know roughly where the leader's going to get to when the safety car's going to leave the lane at that point, because there's no real defined point on the circuit where it happens. Each circuit's a little bit different. But when the safety car comes out, it's usually within a certain time delta of the start-finish line is when it appears, and you've then got to make that call of, can I get into the pit lane and actually get a service done and get out before the safety car leaves, or if I do, am I the first car behind the safety car, or do I have to go around again and catch the back of the train and then do it in that fashion? It is a very, very difficult judgment call to make. We've got most of the field now on the back of the train. Actually, I think we have got the whole entire field. Sands, Daniel Cox, I think, who's been through the lane again. And
so a few guys, Cox one, Power for another. I'm not sure if they were necessarily changing. They might have been changing to a fresher compound of the same tires they were on.
Yeah, I think so.
Cox is on the hards, so that would make sense, trying to get a little bit extra life out of it. But we are now getting the safety car pulling away from the field, so we're getting to our first and potentially last safety car restart of the year.
Right on the half distance mark of this race. So 16 laps completed, 16 laps to go. The penalty seen there for Scott Murrell is going to be rescinded by the admin there, because he is legally doing what he has been asked to do, and for him, he's going to have to play second fiddle here, because Will Davis is going to scoot away, but the real action road is going to be behind.
Absolutely. So it's now the challenge, and I'm already hearing people making contact with the wall on trying to get past Scott Murrell. And for Murrell, if he's got the pace, he is legally allowed to pull away from second, to move up alongside first and overtake Will Davis. He has to do it cleanly, though. For those behind, though, I think outside of second or third, they're not really worried about what Scott Murrell's doing, because Lockie Lock has commenced Operation Train 2.0. It's only Brendan Ross who's got at the moment, but I can see Cam Rutledge lining up there to be part of it. We know Brendan Dostal's got some early stint pace to be a part of it. Noah Tara's obviously trying to buy in as well. Foley's actually made it up to the back of Noah Tara. So there's going to be a little late stint for him as well, and his aspiration to do something or anything to try and hold on to positions he's at risk of losing in the standings as the result of ended tonight. Egmantis is probably the first car back from that that's actually got a clear gap.
We saw Stenberg just get down the inside there of Steele Allison. That moves him up into second place. So he's going to try and go out hard after Devonish here. Where's the rest of the field? Where's the rest of the drivers we want to look at and see what they're up to? So Foley is ninth. Tara is eighth. Tara's trying to process through Brandon Dostal at the moment, who himself is actually having a go at Cam Rutledge. And Tara tried to fill the gap late there on Rutledge and made a bit of contact, and he had to back out of it. So that's unfortunately a bit of a detrimental thing for him there. He's lost a little bit of ground to the number 015. Dostal now scoots off towards turn number 4. He's giving chase to Brendan Ross here, who's in a bit of a fight here with Lockie Lock as they go up through the staircase. Bit of a long shot here as they go around the bends. Ross absolutely giving it full beans. Bit of sideways movement there. That's allowed Dostal to get close. Dostal's had a fairly good restart here, Rody. He looks very racy, as you said. He's got some of that pace. He's not always been consistent, but he's had very good restart.
He has, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just quickly tapping in. There's a couple of guys that were missed by the batch file, or batch file wasn't correctly, but there are a couple of guys at risk of getting disqualified or getting a drive-through.
Rightio. So we'll leave. Here, so while that's happening, down the inside, Brendan Ross being passed by Brandon Dostal here. So he's now going to try and go out after Lockie Lock. So a couple of spots for Dostal. Tara now has managed to process through Cam Rutledge and moves on up to 7th place. Remember, he needs a 3rd place finish. He's the best of the place drivers that can potentially unseat Luke Speck for 3rd place in the championship, but he needs to get a wriggle on, and get a wriggle on quickly. He needs to get up to where Mitchell Steele Allison is, and he's already some 5 seconds nearly up the road. He's got a couple of drivers to process through here. Now, that being said, it's going to be a bit of a tyre issue here, I think, as well. I think Steele Allison knows what he's got to do, as Locke now goes to war with Dostal, who's really looking very, very racy here in this opening phase here. He's gained 2 spots on the restart. Locke's going to have to cover all the defensive lines here, and Dostal having to cover Brendan Ross there as well as another drive through for Jacob Palfrey, just to compound matters. He's already had one of those in this race. That's going to push him, can't push him any further down, because he's already the last car in the lead lap. As Dostal had a sneaky look going through turn 8. He had so much more speed to get that done there, but is he going to hope for a really super late lunge here? Locke sees him coming, leaves him a bit of room, sort of worried out of the position in a way, and the number 10 is not quite clear just yet, and he's going to have to go the long way around with Locke, who leaves him the room. Tara's now cleared Brendan Ross, and is probably going to try and fill down the inside here and send it down the inside of Locke at the final corner if he can. These are the 2 teammates as well, so they're going to have to be very careful. They don't want to trip over each other, and Locke, I think, will probably do the right thing here at some point. I'd say probably up at turn 4, and he'll let Tara in the 26 go by if he gets half a chance, and let him get out after Brandon Dostal. Let's see what the situation is here. Yep, there it is. So stepping to the inside, Tara. and going to leave a healthy bit of room there, lock in the 237. But he comes out of turn 4 with a pretty decent amount of traction. Tara has to go the long way around, and he will now get down the inside of turn 6. And I was about to say, Brendan Ross having a look down the inside there. Late decision to pull out of that move at turn 6. But for Tara, up to 5th place now. And now, can he get out into some clean air? Can he get after Dostal and then start to try and erase some of that margin to steal Allison, because that margin has ballooned out now. Look at it now. It's somewhere near 7.5 seconds.
It is, yeah. So he's done most of the hard work. I think he's gotten past Ross. He's padding between him and Foley. He's gotten past Locke, who, surprisingly for being his teammate, he's probably put up one of the biggest fights he's had to deal with so far. Locke clearly feels he's got some pace, but I think at this point, well, actually correct him, I think at this point he's better just try and tack onto the back of Tara and get him to pull him away from the pair of PBF Maras chasing him down. But yeah, from there, it's now just a bit of work in to get to, well, not a bit of work into, he's right at Dostal. He's just then get past Dostal. We know that even if he's struggling for Dostal's got a bit of pace and a bit of energy in that car. Then it's trying to get through him as quickly and as clean as possible to get to Steele Allison, who's pretty comfortably in a slot for third. I think he's happy to just follow the leaders around at this point. He's definitely close enough that if they get to blows that he can take advantage. And I can't actually remember if Steele Allison's got a win this year yet, but he is in a good position that if something goes wrong in front, he could pick up one as the chips fall. But even as things sit, Steele Allison's really not worried about Noah Tara's race. He's just happy to get some points, but he is the deciding factor for Tara right now.
Yeah, he is the bearer of fruit, I think, is probably what we can call it at the moment. He is holding the fruit basket with everything in it that Tara wants right now. And as you can see from that shot there, he's down at turn number 9 as Tara's giving chase to Dostal through turn 8. Palfrey picks up another drive-through penalty. The margin out in front has just started to shrink a little bit in the last couple of laps. It's hovering around a second at the moment. Stenberg had a slightly better and slightly faster lap than Devonish last time around, about 0.3 of a second. We'll just see what the deficit is this time around and what the lap times are as they get updated. And it was much for muchness. It was a 10th in favour of Devonish on that last lap. So Devonish is starting to respond here as Stenberg starts to apply the blowtorch a little bit in these closing stages here. But as you said, Brody, if these two trip over each other, Steele Allison's going to be within earshot of taking an unlikely, second or maybe even a first place, depending on what happens here. And then the other interest would be around about what's going on with Tara and Dostal. Well, I can tell you what's going on. They are glued together. The nose of the 26 Mustang is very much, at times, under the rear wing of the number 10 Mustang as he tries to find a way through to 4th place. And then, well, for Tara, I think from here it's really a hit and hope, isn't it? It's like a baseball terminology. Just swing for the fence once you get to position number 4, and you just got to see what happens. You just got to hit and hope that something's going to fall your way and you might be able to get up to 3rd place in the standings.
Yeah, the other thing that is a wild card as things sit that could absolutely be the deciding factor is Stenberg is out there on the soft tyres he's carried since the safety car. He's the only one out there on soft tyres of the lead pack. He is, assuming he is very much running with a little bit in reserve, he's going to have to get the tyres to last, but it depends on if he can hold that out and if he can balance out or not. If he can't, he runs a little puncture, if he just runs it wide somewhere and necessitates a pit stop, then Tara's in the box seat. All he has to then do is pass Dostal, which he's got, 9 laps to do. Got
a half a chance now here, and I think he's going to get it done. Dostal actually had to shortcut and take a trip through the turn 1, 2, 3 chicane, and he has had to let Noah Tara through. Not so much had to let him through. I think it was more a case of he slowed down through the chicane to avoid, bicycling out the other side and then, upsetting his run and putting him in a fence. So he cleared the throttle. That gave Tara the run, and he's now through into P4. Foley not too far behind Dostal here as well. So this will be an interesting finish to see if Brenton Foley can finish the season on a high with a good result. But as you said, Roddy, you're absolutely right. Stenberg is now not really, he's nursing those tyres along. He's got the better part of 10 laps to do it for now. Actually, I think 9 laps, I think, as he closes down. And Brendan Ross out of 13th place. He'd actually fallen down the order a little bit. There's a drive-through penalty for him. But yes, he now sort of is a little bit of the joker in the pack now because he's got that soft tyre that he needs to nurse along to the end. And if for some reason the pace drops off, Stenberg will potentially lose a spot to Steele Allison. But then it's about what happens with Noah Tara, because at the moment Tara's 10 seconds behind Steele Allison, but then he's I think about 5 seconds between Steele Allison and Kurt Stenberg at the moment. So there's a little bit to play out with this one here. It's an interesting bit of chess, I think, is what we put it at, Brady.
It is. The one thing we missed, and part of the reason for Brendan Ross's drive-through, him and Steve Warwick just pitted to swap out tyres, I'd imagine. Steve Warwick actually did the classic Adelaide thing of not quite getting the braking right and actually smacking the outside wall between the lane, which Ross had negotiated around. But Ross, of the ways he had a track cut at turn 1, turn 2, and I will knock him slightly for it, he was coming out of pit lane when he did it.
Oh.
That's the prime opportunity to take it slowly and take the corner responsibly rather than trying to, eke out the tenths.
Yep.
So that was a really, really silly way to do that.
Well, that was a bit of a silly and awkward moment with regards to Liccardo and Wedding as well, because neither of them wanted to yield at turn 8. And then on top of that, they managed to somehow get through without contact. The contact sort of happened on the other side of it, with Liccardo contacting the fence and Wedding trying to get through and not being able to make it through entirely. The upshot is Liccardo's holding on for dear life here as Wedding searches for a way past the outward engineering backed Ford Mustang this time. And I don't know what to say here, because these two have we know that these two have had a history in ASR. They've found each other on multiple occasions. It's not a Marcus Ambrose and Greg Murphy scenario. In fact, I'd actually probably go at some points to say it's actually been a bit worse than Marcus Ambrose and Greg Murphy, to be honest with you.
I think at this point they almost have to admit, although it's getting a bit like the days of old, I think at this point they have to admit that if they're going to share a grid, at least in an ASR race, they're going to end up racing each other, and it's going to end up being pretty energetic racing. It seems to happen. They have at both at various points, and it's been pretty well documented, they have both at various points been the one to misstep, been the one to be the cause of some pretty hefty incidents. But I think at this point, Lewis is... that was awkward. What that was slight overlap in the cars, as I think Lewis went for a move around the outside and just tripped up Liccardo, but I don't think that was anything intentional.
No, I think what happened there was a bit more than that. I think Dane had come off turn 8 and had tried to move to the inside to defend, and Lewis was actually trying to do the same thing. Yeah. And then when he moved back, Dane realised he couldn't actually move back, and there may have been a bit of contact there. Look, as you said, you're absolutely right. There's going to be a case where, if they're going to share a grid, they've got to realise that at some point the odds are they are going to race each other. I mean, it hasn't been that way for a little while because they've both been away from things, but it's the way that it is. They come back into being, and it occupies. They're trying to occupy the same bit of racetrack. It's how it unfolds sometimes. Now for Liccardo, he's actually going to worry more about Daniel Cox than he has with Lewis Wedding, because Wedding clearly had the pace in that one there, and at the end of the day, it's only like a half a dozen or 8 laps to go at the time that they've sort of just engaged in battle there. So you can sort of forgive Dane for wanting to play a bit of defence. And I mean, he played defence relatively well, especially through the staircase and things, Wedding throwing a few different things at him and picking the right lines and holding on and making sure he held him out there. I mean, that is probably hard and fair racing. But at the end of the day, the faster car is through, and the faster car's actually, buggered off, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. Like at this point, it's definitely not. I don't think it's an argument that's not a fight that Dane shouldn't have had. Definitely, the pace was probably close enough that if he'd done his darndest, he probably could have held Lewis up. It would have definitely got them both right up. He could have probably held him off to the end. That said, Lewis has got many years of experience still over Dane, and he's going to continue to have years of experience over Dane. He's got the knowledge on knowing how to place a car to get it done, and in this instance, it was maybe a little bit less of a well-structured, coordinated move, and more of a case of there's a gap, I must be in the gap to get past the car. But it's some of that stuff. But the way things are going, he's in a good spot now with Daniel Cox behind, who's a bit more of a close pace to Liccardo. All three of them were running hard. Clearly, Lewis is able to track a little bit more out of the hard tyres at this point than Dane or Cox can. And they've got a good little window now to race by themselves. The next car behind them is Callahan, but he's not the 2-second drift.
No, exactly right. So the way that's all sort of, it is settling down a little bit now. The gap out in front with Devonish to Stenberg has actually moved out to nearly 3 seconds now. So that, I think we're now starting to see the tyres that Stenberg is on are starting to give up a little bit. In fact, they've probably given up to the point where he actually incurred a track strike on the previous tour as well. He's now just across the line to start his 28th lap. And what's he done this time? See, that time around he did a 20.6. So yes, so I think Will knows he's kind of got it covered here, and Stenberg just nursing these things along to the end. And at this stage, with 5 laps to run, I think he's looking okay. I think he realises he knows how much he's got to take out of these tyres. He knows how he's got to nurse them along to the end here. The car behind him is Brendan Ross, who's been in to serve the drive-through penalty. So even if Rossi was managed to get past him, it's not going to bother steady because it's not for position. The interesting one is Steele Allison, who's settled into a rhythm in the 1 minute 21s. Tara's actually in the 1 minute 20s, but unfortunately he's the better part of 8 seconds still adrift of Steele Allison. So he really needs a bit of a miracle here to make this work. And I think, Rody, you were sort of looking at this saying if Steele Allison can hold on here, this would be a first Supercars ASR podium for him. I believe.
I have to check.
He's very close to it.
My argument was around a win, given the race that was at the front, but clearly that race has gone the other way now. But just double check. It would not be his first podium, but it would be his third for the year.
Oh, there you go.
A pretty good run given the sort of year he's had. He has been coming on pretty strong. He's been quite a few fourths and fifths. He's really been targeting the back end of the podium. So it'd be good to get another one to go on to his year.
I reckon a couple probably would have been from the events that I missed out on. As I've just seen that Igmana's just ahead of these couple of drivers here and just gone down the escape road in turn 4. He's just managed to rejoin here, just in front of Steele Allison and Steve Warwick, he's just gone a lap down to the leaders. Steve Warwick running around in 15th place there. So drivers we've lost out of all of this. So Zach Brown very early on in the piece. Luke Speck not too much longer after him, and Palfrey has just recently retired from the result of things, and a couple of penalties and things through there as well since the restart behind the safety car. And Warwick pulls over and lets Steele Allison through, and that's a pretty easy run for him at the end of the day. So ticking off the laps here as the ASR Supercars Championship concludes. Dostal now down into 5th place, but still up 7 spots from where he started, and he's got a fairly healthy margin here at the moment. Brenton Foley in 6th, so at this stage, Noah Tara needs one more spot to be able to jump up into 3rd place overall in the championship. So Foley will be resigned to finishing 5th in the championship. I'm not sure what he's been in the top half, in the top dozen spots at most years. I can't recall what his worst result is since he's been in the Supercars Championship, but of course he was the champion back in 2019 in that little bit of an awkward year after the first year of the league's existence. So it's probably one of his better years, I think. I think is probably the way that it is.
Yeah, I've just gone and checked. Ignoring 2018, because he did pick up the Class 1 in Super 2, and he finished 38th outright due to the way the points were handled. Actually, Stevie Forrest just gone a bit deep in the staircase. The worst championship position for Foley was 2021. He finished 8th. Otherwise, he's been in the top 6 every year.
Well, that's set to continue again. So that just, I guess, that goes to show you the consistency and in turning up just about every week to be able to make this work. He gets the fence all the way through at turn 8. So he's in 6th. Cam Rutledge in 7th. So this has probably been for a driver who was who's been a stalwart for a full timer for the last several years as well. 2 7th place finishes at Adelaide definitely be a high for Cam, considering he's sort of pinballed around the back end of the top 10 in certain occasions, especially when there's been the really super competitive years. You know, the years we had the likes of Corey McFarlane, Luke Rosella, Kurt Stenberg and a couple of others all sort of going, toe-to-toe at the top of the standings, Those drivers that were always improving themselves, but never could get, could never find that same level of improvement that everybody else did. They really didn't sort of get recognised for what they were able to achieve. And for Cam, I think walking away tonight with 2 7th-place finishes will definitely be pretty happy with that. And if he returns in whatever capacity he returns in next year, I'm sure we'll be looking forward to seeing what he can do. Well, 3.219 kilometres and 14 turns to go for Will Devonish to close out the 2025 ASR Supercars season. We already talked about the setback from Bathurst, which is an event that he would have loved to have run at and probably would have been a top 3 finisher in that race and would have sewed up the championship with a round to go. But the gods will deliver what the gods will deliver, so he had to make sure that he could secure all of that in race number 1 to make this one just a little bit easier. But he's just gone out there and gone about the business the way that he has for most of this year, with a huge, a very big differential in terms of the number of wins compared to the next best with Kurt Stenberg. So double-digit wins for Will this year, which has been reminiscent of what happened in his championship year a couple of years ago. Down to turn 9 for the final time and into the Decaturville Terrace hairpin, and now through the back part of the Adelaide Parkland circuit. Been a big year of Supercars racing. The earliest finish in ASR Supercars history to a championship season. Normally doesn't finish till late November, early December. But they can all put their feet up at CRE Engineering, and it's double delight. Not only is it the team's title, but it is a Drivers' Championship for Will, his second title in the last 3 seasons, and he brings the Mustang home. Stenberg has just managed to hold on here with those Ailing soft tyres, and he gets home for P2, so it'll be a 2nd place for the round for him. Mitchell Steele-Allison, that will be a round 3rd place for him, so a 4th and a 3rd gets him home for 3rd overall for the round, so that's an excellent drive for him. Noah Tara comes up 1 position short of being able to get 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. He finishes 4th, Brandon Dostal 5th, Brenton Foley 6th, so for Brenton Foley that will be 5th place in the championship for him. Luke Speck hangs on to 3rd by the skin of his teeth. Cam Rutledge in 7th. Dane Liccardo across the line here for 8th. What happened to Lewis Wedding at the end there? I'm not quite sure. Cox has gotten through for 9th. Callaghan's gotten through for 10th. Is Lewis Wedding out of fuel?
After
Something not quite right. There's something not quite right there. I'm just going back here just to have a little bit of a look here as to what's actually gone on for Wedding. He was very slow coming out of turn number 9 and 10. And look at this, Liccardo all over the back of him. Was there a contact or what happened here?
No, you called it right. He ran out of fuel. He ran out of
fuel
in the last couple of corners and was probably hoping that Dane would incidentally give him a bit of a push to the line, but it is in the way it happened, it probably kind of didn't in the end. So yeah, all that work to get past Dane, just ran out of fuel.
Well, there you go. He crosses the line in 11th place. So bit of a shame there for Wedding after a good strong drive in the first race, and then having to fight pretty hard in that last one. Locked 12th for him, and then Egmanis doing the burnouts on the straight with his teammate, because they of course are the team's champions. Steve Warwick came in 14th, and then Brendan Ross 15th, and Scott Murrell 16th, so he's already back in the shed. So they were the classified finishers, and Jacob Palfrey, Luke Speck, and Zach Brown the non-finishers in this one. 23 races across 12 rounds of the championship, and it is done for season 2025. So I don't know what else we can really say at this point, Rhodey. We, of course, have got one final little bit of business to come, and that, of course, means that we need to grab the top 3 for the round and bring them up, have a little chat as you usually do, and dissect the round that was, because of course there's nothing else to look forward to this year apart from the social series events, because there's no more broadcasting beyond tonight. So I'm sure you're reaching out to a few guys there, and actually I can hear you typing in the background. I mean, you're probby keying in the points. I think that's probably what you're doing
getting
more
the last
impotently.
of the points tabulated while I still have the race totem pole to look at. It makes it easier than digging back through the results files. So interesting play for Noah Tara. Not only did he not get what he needed for third, it came down to a single point.
Yeah, you're right.
So to be fair, the only reason it was that close to begin with is because Spec turned up to every single round and incurred a drop round.
So yes,
so
the way that's
definitely some arguments back and forth, and I know both Spec and Foley made arguments 2 and 4 drop rounds in the last couple of weeks. That's a discussion for next year. Obviously, everything's locked in for this year as to how things play out. But another title, another set of positions decided by a single point in the end. Scott Murrell did still manage to finish in the top 10. He finished 9th. He got ahead of Damon McDonald as a result of being in Damon's car tonight. But he finished 1 point behind Curtis Egmanis in the race for 8th, which, as somebody who is a substitute driver, that's a really, really good run for Murrell. And I think it's already kind of locked in. We're not sure as to what it's going to look like, but definitely going to be a really strong contender as a full-time runner next year.
Yeah, absolutely right. So we wait to see if we can drag our top couple of drivers up to have a little chat with us, Roddy. I think you're probably the one that's reaching out to see if you can get them in here. So
we'll to make sure who they are first.
Yeah, so confirming Will Devonish is your round winner.
Actually, it's going to be Will and Kurt and Mitch.
then Lime, and then I was about to say Lime Mitch there, but no, it's Mitchell Steele Allison is with the 4th and the 3rd is third overall for the round. So it's going to be good to have a chat with them. So just have a bit of a look, just while Rhodey's grabbing those last couple of drivers, to see if they would like to come up for one last chat for the year. I can appreciate it is a little bit late on for a few people that are tuning in for live streaming. Top 3, so Devonish, Stenberg and Speck were the top 3 for the series, with Turra and Foley. These, of course, are all before any other last-minute penalties come into play. Steele Allison actually finishing 6th overall for the year, ahead of Lockie Lock, Curtis Egmanis. Scott Murrell, despite the fact he was a guest driver, actually got himself up to 9th place, and he actually trailed getting 8th overall in the standings to Curtis Egmanis by a single point. That last race actually hurt him quite badly, with being trapped a lap down and then right down the back. So again, another one of them 1 point swings that needed to be done. Damon McDonald, surprisingly, because he missed the night, actually held on for 10th place. Cox and Cam Rutledge right on his tail. In fact, Cox and Cam Rutledge actually only separated by 5 points at the end of the day, so that's a very, very tight finish there between the two of them in 11th and 12th in their last outing together as teammates. So one thing to be sort of considered there. And as I think, Rody, you're sending a bit of the message out there as well. That's the reason why I couldn't figure out who it was. You've managed to work out all of that, and we're waiting to see the drivers make an appearance. So I guess there's plenty that a number of drivers will sort of feel that I won't say they've been hard done by or things like that. There will definitely be a few people that will be reflecting on the season, and they'll think, coulda, shoulda, woulda, what if I did this, what if that scenario happened, what if I had pitted a lap earlier versus a lap later, and all those sorts of things. It is one of those types of been one of those types of seasons, considering that there's quite a few fine margins in there with everything that has happened over the course of the year, but that all stops now because there is no more racing, so they can go and drown their sorrows and figure all of that part of it out. We do have quite the full commentary box at the moment. So the bit that I am sort of going to be most interested in here, Rhodey, is to find out everybody that has been a part of the round and what we're up to. So I think probably the first thing we need to do is we just start with position number 3 overall for the round, which of course is Mitchell, Steele, Allison, and then work our way down from there and
Yep.
see how that all unfolds. So, Roddy, I will hand this one over to you.
Thank you. So, starting off with yourself, Mr. Steele Allison, last round of the year and your last of 3 podiums for the year, which has net you a resultant 6th place in the standings provisionally. First of all, how'd you feel tonight went?
Yeah, I think it was pretty good. Pace was, yeah, it was decent. The first race, just made too many mistakes and spun the tyres a bit too much. Couldn't keep pace with Specky and Tara. But second race, I think definitely toned it down a bit. Tried to save my tyres a lot more. I feel like definitely played into my hands a lot better than the first race did. But overall, pretty happy getting a podium in the last race of the year. Finishing 6th, I'd say for the first season in the main game, I'm very happy with that.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, we don't necessarily keep, although it wouldn't hurt to keep records of the best debuts. Although to be fair, I think best debut would be taken by whoever won the championship in 2018 when this all first started. But we'll worry about the particulars of that later. But still, yeah, for your first full season in Supercars, to be coming home with 6th, and not only that, with a bit of assistance from your teammates in Rory Collins and Nathan Higginson and a couple of guest drivers, you did nearly past Kurt Stenberg in the team standings as well, which, considering that he is 600 points ahead of you in the driver's standings, is a pretty good run, given that you've really been the only full-time runner for your team. I understand you're moving to a new teammate next year, but before we get to that, I mean, we did talk about it a little already, but what's your thoughts for the season as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, considering I missed a couple rounds, would obviously love to make all the rounds, but yeah, I'd say definitely learnt a lot. You know, the cars are very different from Super 2, so coming in obviously didn't start off the greatest, but you know, pace obviously got better throughout the year. You know, it's been a great year racing with all these guys. Probably one of the best years of racing I've had as a whole. But obviously, a few podiums. Obviously, would have liked to win at some stage, but hopefully that comes next year. But yeah, you
Absolutely.
know, it's just been a pleasure racing with everyone in ASR. You know, can't wait to move forward.
It has, and I take it from what you're saying that next year you're looking at running again and maybe trying to put a win on the scoreboard.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like I'll be booted from Super 2 now from this year, so it's main game for me till the end.
Alrighty, well, great work by yourself tonight, Mitch, and good way to round out the championship. And hopefully, we're seeing you on the grid again in 2026.
Thank you.
Alrighty, moving up to second for the round, and not only second for the round, second in the standings. Mathematically, you were there up until the end of race 1, but Kurt Stenberg, given what your plans were for this year, I think it was still a pretty valiant effort in a championship defense.
Yeah, mate. I was even shocked to go in tonight with a mathematical chance. Look, to be honest, it was never going to happen. So without, Will having something major happen, which is not how I'd want to win
Brat the yak brat said mom and dad are fighting slightly frowning face.
Just didn't have the pace tonight. That's the thing. So.
Well, we'll talk about tonight quickly then. Clearly, maybe pace wasn't quite there, so you did try and get there through strategy options. We did notice that you pitted fairly early off of the softs in race 1. Was that a strategy call, or was there something else playing you there?
Well, I just went that we weren't going to win the race there on the softs. Like, I felt pretty comfortable on the softs in the first part of the race, but I outbroke myself. I think my tire pressures were too high, just the way it started to feel, and didn't feel very nice. And I got a tire call for how worn they were, and I'm just going to put the hards on. I know they'll last the race, and we'll just see how we go. But we caught too much traffic, so that was the problem in race 1. And then race 2, I just thought we try something different. Like, we know that's how it went, so we'll see. And I'll be honest, if the safety car come 2 or 3 laps later, we probably had it. I will be honest here. I pushed at the start of that to try and get to the lead and see what I could do, but I reckon about 7 or 8 laps in, I had to put up the flag and just go, well, it's either run second or blow a tire and be backwards. So I finished with 1% on the tire, so I was pretty happy with that. I didn't think I'd even get close about 8 laps to go. So all round, at 2 seconds, it's a pretty solid night.
Absolutely. Well, we talked a little bit about the season. Obviously, I think the plan coming into this was just getting yourself clear and ahead of Luke Rosella on the all-time win standings. I think you've comfortably done that now, but generally, clearly you stuck around a little longer than that. What was your thoughts for the year?
I enjoyed it. Like, I must admit, I struggled with these cars at the start of the year. I seem to be better on these cars on fast-flowing tracks. I mean, we look at the Bend, we look at Bathurst, we look at SMP. I think what I have going works well there. And I did try to learn. I learned a lot about setting up a car during the year in these cars. Thought what I ran at Bathurst would work all right here, but going in, but just didn't. So yeah, it was pretty good. It was a shame that I missed the one round. I thought I was going to miss more, but yeah, I look all round. It was good fun. I rocked up at SMP just to have a run, and I've ended up running the rest of the year. So I'm not going to say that I won't be back next year if there is something on. Do enjoy racing here, especially against Will.
That was about to be the next question. So yeah, obviously you're probably even less certain of what 2026 looks like, given you came into 2025 only looking at that as a part-time endeavor. But by the sounds of it, if there's something to race, you will be here to race it.
Yeah, exactly. It depends it does depend on what it is though. Like, I'm keen to race. It's good fun, especially against the competition here. Yeah, I enjoy it. I started to stop enjoying it, but yeah, this year I've really enjoyed it. It's actually been really tough, which is what brings you back. You want to try and fight for it, and it's been a fight the whole year.
Well, great work by yourself, Kurt. You've done a really good job with this year, given the aim coming into it, and hopefully we'll be seeing you on the grid again in 2026.
Hopefully, mate. And I just want to give a big thanks to Nether for all his work broadcasting and as an admin here. Like, it's been awesome, and he's been a big part of why it's been successful. So just a big thank you to that. Yeah, love your work and best of luck with your future endeavors.
Alrighty, swinging on over to the championship winner, and very much a win it or bin it year. He only spent one race, he only finished one race outside of the podium positions. Will Devonish, pretty well-deserved win of for the championship this year.
Yeah, it was ended up being pretty much a perfect year for myself and the team. I mean, not being able to compete with Bathurst was a bit annoying. I wanted to wrap up the round there, but yeah, coming in tonight, wanted a less stress, but seemed to work, and yeah, we ran away with it tonight. And yeah, I'm super proud of the team. First time we've gotten 1, 2, 3 in the teams championship, so I think yeah, it's just perfect year all round for CRE.
Yeah, not only the 1, 2, 3 in the teams, you've also picked up, or you also ended up with. I apologize, I should have this stat prepared, but I'm doing the math now. You ended up with 5 of your drivers in the top 10. Granted, one of those was Scott Murrell, who was as much your driver as he wasn't your driver. He drove for, well, I think most of your competitors in the team standings as well. But really good year by you guys. And yeah, I suppose, what's 2026 looking like for the team?
There might be some shifting around in the team. So yeah, you might see the 3 teams looking a bit different. I know in myself, I'm wanting to expand a bit and go into other sims. So I'll probably start scaling back ASR in general, but I'll definitely be back next year in the Supercars.
Absolutely. Well, a great work by yourself, Will, and great work by the team as well. You've had the team running 6 years now. It'd be good to see a series back for a 7th season in ASR in 2026. But for what matters tonight, you've picked up not only the Drivers' Championship, but the Team's Championship yet again. Done about as best as you could for the season. Great work by yourself, Will, and hopefully we'll catch you again in 2026.
And before I go, I also want to thank everyone else that's rocked up to race this series. There's been some fantastic battling. Myself and Kurt, I think the broadcast thinks there's animosity there, but we actually really like racing each other. And thank you for everyone else that's come to race with us. It's been great.
Alrighty, swinging on over to a man who did his best to throw it away, but thankfully the odds played to his favour. Luke Speck, despite the adversity he faced at points this year, and by just a point, you've managed to hold on to 3rd overall in the driver standings.
Yep, I was scared, very, very scared. Watching Noah come through the field, and yeah, nearly bottled that massively. But
Yeah, well, yeah,
for a debut year, P3 in the drivers can't be mad with that.
absolutely. Yeah, P3, and one of the few drivers actually ultimately a net penalised as a result of the drop round, although crucially it didn't actually affect your placing at all. But talk about you delineated a little bit there. Talk about year as a whole, your first year in the supercars.
Oh, it was really fun, like to pick up a few podiums where I did, where really I thought at the start of the year maybe a top 10 in the drivers was achievable, to jag a few podiums and be a lot quicker than expected. It shows it. Yeah, good feeling to be saying, oh yeah, been battling people like Noah, Foley, Will and Kurt sometimes, quick people, so we'll take it.
Absolutely. Well, we've talked to a few others about their plans for next year. What are things looking at for you? And I believe you probably have a bit of an insight on where maybe SES is heading as a whole as well.
Well, if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said there might not be a team, but Nat will be back bigger and stronger next year. Yeah, hopefully, we can have more presence on the grid, but yeah, Nat will be back. I'll have a new teammate and maybe a different logo on the front of the car. So looking forward to next year.
Absolutely. Well, great work this season, Specky. Great work tonight as well to pick up that another podium again, and hopefully we'll see you again in 2026.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate everything.
And finally, although we can mention and touch on a little bit on his driving, given that he has managed to pick up 12th in the driver standings, which is a pretty good run, and also 3rd in the team standings. Cam Rutledge, you've been the series sponsor for this year. How has the series been from your standing?
I think the series this year has really stepped up from driving standards point of view. The amount of races that we've gone through without a safety car shows how clean the drivers are, and I think it's been a fantastic season to try and go faster and faster. I've loved every bit of it.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Leaning into a bit yourself, then, as I mentioned, 12th in the team driver standings, ultimately not quite enough to not only pass your teammate, but actually get into the top 10. But still, pretty good year considering where you felt your pace has been at times.
Yeah, I think this year I've really stepped up to another level in myself. I've really started feeling comfortable in the car. I really would like to be top 10 in the championship, but I had 2 rounds that I didn't even start this year, so to be 12th with 2 rounds that I didn't start, I think is a good effort.
Absolutely. Well, we did talk about it a little bit on the stream as to why you're running the livery you're running tonight and what that's going to do for you next year. But we won't necessarily ask about what next year looks like because I'm not sure you quite even know yet. But we do hope to see you again for next year, and hopefully we can carry the CRE advertising again on a series again in 2026.
100%. I hope to be on the grid. Let's just see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, great work tonight and great work this season, Cam, and thanks again for your support of the league.
And big shout out to you guys and Steve. You're still an amazing job. The effort that he's put into making awesome broadcasts, but also all the admins behind the scenes that make this community run. Like we wouldn't be doing this really good racing without you guys putting the track packs together and the liveries and everything else. So thank you to everyone.
Alrighty, that is our podium sitters done, and I will leave this with Nether to finish off, but before I do want to contribute some thoughts as well. I've known Nether now for 8 years, and we've definitely been in differing positions. There was a point, believe it or not, where I was the superior, but clearly the roles have been reversed now. It's going to sting giving up this seat alongside Nether in commentary. I've had thoughts about how to approach this a couple times this year, and both of them have resulted in me showing emotion I didn't believe I'd have for watching pixel cars go around and around in circles and talking to a stream that was averaging maybe 15 viewers live. But this has been a big part of my life, and it's only really been a big part of my life thanks to the work that Nether's put in, not only as a broadcaster, which has seen him carry that across to IRL commentary, which I believe he does still have another gig or two to do this year. But also with his work as an admin running the league, he's been, I don't think it's incorrect to say that he's very much the father figure in ASR as it's been for the last 5 or 6 years. And while we will be continuing on in 2026, it will be in a different way, and it will be a sad way that we're doing it without Nether at the helm. That said, he is absolutely still welcome in any part he wants to play in the league going forward. And crucially, the bit that matters for him, he's going to get to spend a bit more time and a bit of important time with his family. But for the work you've done since the league started, Nether, we really appreciate it. And I'm not sure I can say too much more on that.
No, thank you. I've been seeing the messages coming in on the live stream, and I've had a few direct messages tonight as well. I just want to first and foremost pay a little bit of a fitting tribute to everybody that came to race, because everybody tonight actually had to do a little bit of work for Roadie and nominate on the side of the car of which car they wanted to drive, because Roadie put a nice little banner with thanks to Cam and a bunch of other guys that came up with a few ideas tonight. For the delivery, just a nice little touch, which I wasn't expecting to see. A number of other drivers that had some, changes of liveries to say thank you, and just to acknowledge that, the work that I'd put in over the years, which I guess you can say it wasn't by, I wasn't selected. It was, I guess, inherited. There's been a number of people along the way, all the way back from when it was Brock Harvey and Matt Williams who were trying to build this into the way that it was. And then I guess there was the passing of the baton, and a number of us stepped up and took it from there. Someone, I guess, has to be the leader of Robin Hood's band of merry men, and I guess that turned out to be me. I've always said to people, I don't like being a leader, but I'm one hell of an organizer. So I'm just really grateful that all the guys that have been involved over the years, so whether it's the current team of Roadie, Will, Brenton Foley, Brendan Ross, Nathan Higginson, and all the other guys that have sort of come in and sort of chipped in where they can along the way, or whether it's the likes of Lewis Wedding and some of the others that have been, and Phil Boak and a couple of others that have been involved in seasons gone past. It takes a team to run a community like this, and that's what it is. It's a community. It's a community where people can put aside their differences and they can come and enjoy themselves, whether that's via racing pixel cars around a screen, or whether it's just to have a bit of a chat. This is home for some people. We cater for a diverse and mixed different range of different people from not just in this country, but from around the globe, that people come and want to be part of this community. And I'm just really grateful to have been a part of it. The decision to step away has not been an easy one. I've toyed with it for several years. There's been some setbacks and some animosities and some all sorts of things that, as someone as a senior figure in a league like this, you're going to cop a bit of abuse, and you're going to cop all sorts of things. And not every decision is popular, but it's made in the best interests of the majority of the people that continue to come and race and respect everything that goes on inside of four walls. And COVID really turned that into four walls. But this year, I'm just super proud to have sat back and seen, for the first time in a long time, it's not been the same sort of relentless 2 or 3 hours a night organising things and keeping things on track. This year, it's been it's a hard thing to describe, but it's been a year where you can really sit back and really see that the fruits of the labour that have been put in for 7 to 8 years have been worth it. It's been worth every minute, every challenge, every single person that's walked through this door. I thank you all for what you've done for this league and what you've done for me, both personally and professionally. This isn't goodbye, but for the moment, it's farewell. Thank you all, and drive safely.